Good evening. In compliance with Chapter 551 Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code, I call to order an information session of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, December 11th, 2025 at 6:03 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at the ISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. The meeting is being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum and Stone Broadband and on channel 99 through AT&T Uverse. Closed captioning in English is available on those platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. Welcome and thank you for joining us. First is an opportunity for the public to share comments with the board. This time allows speakers to comment publicly on any topic of their choosing directly to the school board. The Board of Trustees had approved an adjustment to the public comment call-in times at our September 25th voting meeting to be effective December 1st. So this is the first meeting when our new calling procedures are in effect. General public comments may now be provided in person or pre-recorded over the phone from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. the day before the meeting and from 7:45 a.m. to 1 p.m. the day of the meeting. So the comment period is closing a little bit earlier. This change was put in place to give our community significantly more time to call in, extending the total phone line availability from 10 hours to 13 hours and 15 minutes, and the earlier end time gives our staff necessary time to prepare the recorded messages before our board meetings so the public isn't waiting to hear those messages, because sometimes it takes substantial time to put them all together. For tonight's meeting, we have time for up to 60 speakers, and we also have time during regular voting meetings to hear from the public about agenda items for consideration and vote. This is an opportunity for the board to take part in listening to our community. And while we wish we could respond or provide feedback, the Texas Open Meetings Act does not authorize a board to discuss or act on comments or complaints from members of the public if the subject is not on the posted meeting agenda. Members of the public wishing to participate in the public comment portion of our meeting called a dedicated Austin ISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or audio record their remarks. Tonight we have no one who signed up to speak in person. We have 7 people who left recorded messages, and we will now play those messages for public comment.
This is Sharon Vane, the parent of 2 AISD graduates. Today, I find myself gravely concerned about the district's future. Usually, my worry is what TEA is going to do. Today, after reviewing the final TAP plans, my concern is how we are going to pull off TEA-defined success at so many schools. I look forward to learning how Dobie, Burnett, and Webb are doing tonight, what is next for those schools, and what lessons have been learned to apply to the 24 schools that now have a TAP of some type. This is not going to work without deep community support. I hope we will see the district provide many opportunities to help support these campuses with people power. We cannot afford to pretend that meetings alone are engagement as we try to meet an ever-shifting standard. We survive this or fall together. Thank you.
A few weeks ago, one of the trustees held up a book about closing schools and stated, "We hit every box in this book to close them." Well, that same book also says, "Do not close schools without a plan." 6 of you seemingly ignored that part. So here we are. No clear plan, no new home for dual language wall-to-wall kids, just families twisting in the wind. We listened as the superintendent promised support, claimed there was capacity, and assured us everything was in place. These are half-truths at best. Since then, we've been denied tours, told dual language is full, and handed at least 8 different courses of action of where we should go and what we should do at your so-called enrollment clinic, where executive directors say that programs are full and won't expand, and have given every family a different set of instructions on what to do based on a one-page flyer that doesn't make sense. People say that Matthias is process-oriented, but from where families sit, it looks like he's very disoriented, and our children deserve better.
4.1, Dobie, Burnett, and Webb are still missing core and required special education staff. SPED leadership has been notified. The board presentation on this item says under development hours before the board meeting and has no information. The 1882 letter of intent and priority 1 deadlines have already passed, and we still don't know where these schools stand on accountability. I also have serious concerns about the integrity of the 1882 process. The superintendent met off calendar to discuss their capacity in giving them more schools. This gives one vendor an unfair advantage and violates procurement rules. He sought to withhold his calendar through an OAG ruling. I also requested a mandatory investigation into third feature under policy EL for violations of law and accounting violations more than a week ago with no response. 6.1, expanding pre-K while AISD continues to fail early childhood learners is concerning. We need a review of the leadership of this department. 7.2, 9.2, AISD mishandled its CRACO contract for 47 bilingual teachers, sued preemptively, wasted taxpayer dollars. We need a resolution on this. Also on bilingual, you all voted to close the dual language programs, leaving hundreds of kids displaced. There is nowhere for them to go. This needs to be fixed. 10.2, AISD is not ensuring teachers get certified and is leaving Title I campuses with the highest. This is Marie. My public comment was restricted to only 60 seconds, so my daughter, who is homesick, would like for me to leave a public comment. She wants to ensure teachers get the support and the resources that they need. The consolidations cause concerns. There are not resources that are going with the children. Instead, it is creating a situation where campuses are understaffed and under-resourced. So we need to review the staffing models with the consolidations. And on 10.2, the district is not taking necessary action to get teachers certified, nor are they providing support to ensure that this happens. There are teachers that are here for multiple years with no certification and not enrolled in any program. We are asking for the district to pay the fees for teachers on Title I campuses where we have the highest number of uncertified teachers. My daughter really wants to make sure that teachers have the support that they need and that they are getting training and education.
AISD, if you choose not to do the hard work to correct your own enrollment system and the handcuffs that Enroll Austin puts on dual language campuses in particular, we are all wasting our time here. If Enroll Austin does not allow principals to prioritize EB students, you as a district will be chasing your tail for the 50-50 pie in the sky EB to non-EB ratio. And you will have closed vibrant, successful neighborhood schools in your wake. At a bare minimum, the teachers and parents of the dual language campuses that you closed should have priority in their choice to any dual language program, including existing dual language campuses that are not receiving new students based on TAP. We are suffering, and the families affected by the closure should have priority through the entire enrollment process. We should know where our children are going to go next year prior to April 24th. This is unacceptable and makes me very sad and angry. We cannot wait until the end of round 2 to get answers on where our children will be next year.
Hi, Becker parent. I wanted to address the debacle that happened at our school the other day, but I'm sure everybody else has called in to discuss that before. What I would like to know is how you plan to staff school counselors at the receiving school who are combining many different schools. Currently, I know at Galindo, for example, there's only one school counselor, but they are receiving 3 schools. I'm wondering if your transition team has plans to staff for many more school counselors for this transition. I also wanted to ask about Bolden families who have been zoned now to Zilker, and the dual language has been taken away. I wonder why they are not being zoned or given an opportunity at Travis Heights, why they would have to be a transfer, because that's actually their neighborhood school and for many of those people closer than Zilker is. So I really think you should rethink placing the
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm an AISD parent of a kindergartner. I'm calling to ask the trustees to direct the AISD staff to release the full unaggregated data used in Maplewood's rubric scoring, including formulas, source enrollment files, SRI components, FCA documentation, and building cost calculations. We're asking for a data transparency request. We also urge the trustees to demand that no vote is taken until enrollment attrition can be seen in September. We've just lost our principal. And right now, the district is essentially making long-term operational decisions for Maplewood as if closure is predetermined. This violates the stated process, the rubric, and your claim that the community input is being considered. Highly urge you to please get all of the data before you make another closure vote.
Thank you to all of our callers. This concludes our public comment. As a reminder, you can also share comments or questions with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. And do we have any clarification questions from the trustees? Trustee Hunter.
I know the answers to the other ones that I have. I've just found them now. But as far as the teacher certification, would you address what the district is doing for uncertified teachers and maybe anything that has come from HB2 so that all of our community can know what's happening?
I'll have Brandy Hosek, our talent strategy officer, come up. It's actually an agenda item here. Well,
Yes.
I say a preview item.
And also,
And do you want to save it till we get to the preview? Does that make sense?
that works for me.
Okay. Then we can discuss it. That works. Because then we may have some other questions. Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Me again. So interesting that a caller said that they were denied tours. I was just speaking with someone today that was able to tour Sanchez with another family, and if the superintendent can look into that perhaps and see what's going on. And I want to be sure that when people say denied, that it's not today or not at this time, which hopefully I hope that's not happening either, but not no, you can't tour.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Hunter. So one of the things that we have been doing is making sure that we create a framework regarding our expectations for tours. You're exactly right. There are many instances in when tours are being requested, but they're not necessarily organized in a way to where they can be facilitated to meet kind of the ongoing obligations on the campus. And so one of the things that Victoria O'Neill, who's Executive Director of Enrollment and Engagement, as well as the team here, has been developing is a structure for our principals. But by and large, we've sent the message very loud and clearly. I've met with all the principals multiple times and talked about our desire to get to welcome our families to experience our schools. And even if our school that family is wanting to tour is for whatever reason full or whatever you'd like to say, bringing them in and having them understand who Austin ISD is and perhaps providing other opportunities or connecting with other schools. So we made that loud and clear. We are providing additional frameworks, and ideally what we're going to get to is say if they can't occur continuously throughout the month, provide 2 times a month for them to occur over the course of the next many months and then wind down as we move into the summer. So we have made that commitment. We're creating the framework, and we've already communicated that to our principals. Sorry.
Thank you. Any additional questions or clarifications?
Trustee Kaufman.
Trustee Kaufman, hello?
Yes,
Trustee
good
Kaufman
evening.
is with us on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I just want to reiterate, I think Matthias already answered this question, but I want to reiterate that my understanding of that public comment was not regarding Sanchez, but was regarding other dual language schools where there's an expectation that students would be able to transfer if space is available. And so I appreciate the effort to clarify that question from the constituent around, or that concern around making sure that our campuses are welcoming and ready to receive families who are committed to dual language. Thank you.
Yeah, Trustee Kaufman, one of the things I can do is just I can identify the caller and then just reach out via the number that they sent and see if I can facilitate a tour if that is a barrier or if there's something we can do on our end.
Yeah, and we can talk offline. There are several public emails regarding the same issue, so I'm happy to share some of those with you later.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Singh.
Well, we've gotten, many emails and comments tonight as well, a few comments tonight about just the general process of the implementation of the enrollment clinics. And so I just wanted to know if there was anything that you could share just from your perspective on those.
Yeah. So before we actually took the vote on November 20th, several weeks prior, one of the things that we heard loud and clear was that there was a real need to make sure that our families knew what options they would have for their student or students. And given the complexity around the different options, especially at schools that were transitioning to perhaps multiple schools, we offered to have a series of clinics. And those clinics started this past Tuesday. We've had Becker, Ridgetop. We have some next week, and we're going to continue on all the way through and support all those schools that are going through a consolidation. We communicated out, and again, I will say, and I do want to acknowledge the frustration that our Becker families certainly felt. I think that when it comes to probably the largest event, being the first one out of the gate created some challenges logistically. But the intent was to have small kind of engagements with staff, one-on-one with families, and walk through the opportunities or the paths that are available to their student. And it is through prioritization, it is tied to schools, and so we worked hard to make sure that there was uniformity in how we communicated, but certainly words matter, and so we've taken feedback, we've made adjustments. And we've since had another meeting at Ridgetop, which I think went much better. We are reaching back to the Becker communities because we recognize that there is a kind of misstep there. And that communication, I either think is about to go out or it was going out tomorrow, just kind of following up. But the idea was really to create space to have that conversation directly with families. But we certainly recognize that we didn't quite hit the mark in that first meeting with the Becker community, and we're coming back around as well.
Are we gonna have, are we gonna have similar enrollment clinics at our TAP schools like Woodane?
Yeah, so all those schools that are going through a transition.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because of how is it Monday? So we started, as I communicated before, the 20th with the 4 wall-to-walls, and then Wynn Montessori, and then we're going to the other schools.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get as many as we can before winter break, but given obviously the scale and the number of days left, it's hard to get them all, but they are scheduled. And I can certainly share. Oh yes, and I can share that with the board.
Okay, is that public somewhere?
I know it's been sent out. I can't think if it's posted, but if it's not posted, I can make it posted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Quintana.
I just wanted to clarify that the meetings, the clinics at the TAP schools and closed schools are separate from community engagement meetings.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of the things, there are lots of efforts that are occurring at the same time. These meetings are specifically for families that are enrolled and wanting to sit down with families and communicate the options their student has, because there's a transition occurring. So it's a clinic. It's not, we do an overview when we first come into the space, but then it's really kind of smaller one-on-one conversations. The ongoing conversations regarding engagement that are occurring as we work through transition, they're very different. And those are going to continue through the spring semester.
Okay, and those are scheduled too, or not yet?
Not all of those are scheduled, no.
Okay, and that will be public as well?
Oh, yes. Yeah, as we build out the transition plans, and we're going to have a presentation next Thursday on specifically this topic, transition plans, all the engagement around that. But the idea is to have them all, to the extent possible, scheduled at least by range of dates, and then build it out.
Okay.
But they are different.
I know that the Becker families had some feedback around the waiting time that they had to wait even though they had an appointment time. So I just hope that moving forward with those clinics, we can figure out how we can make that more efficient and make sure people are, who are taking time off work and are being seen at the time that they signed up for.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's one of the, I think I want to acknowledge that frustration for sure. I have to balance, and this is, I think, part of the challenge is I want to make sure that information is uniform, right? Because based on the complexity of the different options that families have, it's important that each person is communicating with the same understanding. And so each person that's at a table on AISD's behalf is very clear and understands precisely what needs to be shared. when there are hundreds of families, given the hours that we have, you have to have more people that have that same understanding. And we didn't quite have enough to meet that kind of flow, to not make it a frustrating experience. So we are doubling back. We are reaching out to those who weren't able to sit down with us to create more space. We made adjustments before we went to Ridgetop, and so Ridgetop went smoother. There were fewer families, but it did go smoother. So we certainly acknowledge that. And in most instances, we would have started with a smaller school, kind of given the what we knew was kind of likely to happen. But because of the urgency around trying to communicate earlier, we started with Becker. And so, I think we're improving. We're going to come back, but that was the intent. It was a good intention. It just didn't quite logistically get pulled off the way that we would have hoped.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional clarifications? All right, thank you. And thank you. I just want to appreciate the questions about Becker. And I was at the clinic and really appreciate, I know you and I had a conversation that day by text, and appreciate you listening to what the family said and working to adjust. So thank you very much for that. And thank you to all of our callers. Next up, as part of the agreed order with our Texas Education Agency, we are required at the first board authorized meeting each month to publicly report by reading into the record the percentage of time invested in student outcomes during the prior 3-month time period and the total time spent in closed session during the prior month. September, October, and November 3-month average board meeting time spent on Lone Star Governance defined student outcomes and special education monitoring was 58%, so we've exceeded our target of 50%. For the last month in November 2025, we were at 70%, and the board spent 40 minutes in executive session in November. Next up is our information reports and updates. Mr. Segura, would you please introduce our next item?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you, President Boswell. I'd like to welcome up Dr. LaTanya Amerson, Assistant Superintendent of School Improvement, Dr. Marianne Maxwell, Assistant Superintendent of Academics, Brandy Hosick, Talent Strategy Officer, and Joshua John, Executive Director of Governance, Accountability, and Board Services. And we'll be presenting an update on the Burnett, Dobie, and Webb turnaround plans. So we'll get... See, Josh is over there. I'm sure he'll be able to.
Do we need to get Josh over here?
I just want to make sure he's aware about to get started. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Josh, for the. We'll make sure he. All right. So, as we start this presentation regarding an update on the Dobie, Burnett, and Webb turnaround plans, I do want to kind of reference the kind of concept of turnaround plans, if you move to the next slide, or what we call TAPs. And so per education code, as you can see here, school districts are ordered by the commissioner to develop a turnaround plan whenever a school receives 2 unacceptable accountability counts. And that can be done with a series of Ds or Fs. And this can only be broken if the chain can only be broken if the school receives a C or better. And so in most years, what typically happens is on your second year, you develop a turnaround plan, you use the third year to plan and develop, and then you have 2 years to implement, thereby breaking the accountability chain within the 5th year. The commissioner has, by way of code and law, has the ability and shall order the closure of a school or install a board of managers if a school gets its 5th unacceptable accountability count. And just to be extremely clear, these schools, Burnett, Webb, and Dobie, are currently in that 5th year. As we look at the timeline that we went through to get to this point, you'll see that it is very unique. Typically, you wouldn't see this type of compression regarding the timeline and the development of the plans. As I said before, this is a much longer process, But because of the lawsuits that held up the 23 accountability, 24 accountability, and the way that 25 accountability was released in August, you effectively had 3 years be released within a 5-month span. And so in the spring of 20... Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I just want to provide a little context. I just want to be sure it's not lost. If any one of the 3 schools, Dobie, Burnett, or Webb, gets an F this year, right, like based on the STAR that they take in a few months in
Correct.
April, the school, and get an F,
Correct.
the whole district can be taken over.
If they get an F, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I provide clarification? If we're not in an 1882 partnership.
That's what I was going to say, but I wasn't. I was going to say that,
But like as is,
Yeah.
like if we don't do anything, if we just keep going and we don't contract with an 1882 partner, the entire school district will be taken over. It can, but yeah, we can interpret that as well. Or at least I would. Okay, I just want to make sure like that's clear and so we can watch the rest of the presentation with that in mind. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's definitely clear to me. And so, this timeline here, and I think Trustee Singh, I think is reinforcing just the urgency around this type of work. And I do want to express the amount of work that's been completed in a relatively short period of time, given the compression that's occurred because of how the accountability ratings were released for 23, 24, and 25. The main milestone that I want to call out here is that the turnaround plans were approved on June 26th of 2025. This is very, very atypical in most years, assuming we get back to a normal cadence. That would not be the case. So these turnaround plans that we began implementing once the school year started in August of 2025, those were approved just a couple months earlier in late June of 2025. So effectively having just a couple months to build this out and ultimately implement. As you move on to the next slide, what I want to communicate are the different options that school districts have as they build out turnaround plans. You can see here that there are 6 different options. But these are, again, meant to be considered when the commissioner orders turnaround plans to be developed by the school district. And so you have 6 different options. You have the school improvement model or strategy, the district managed restart, which is what we've proposed and what we've completed or executing now for Burnett, Webb, and Dobie. A partner-managed restart, which is what is currently underway at Mendez, a closure or a reassign, which is a strategy that was deployed and recently approved by the board on November 20th for other schools. A new school, district-managed. This is, when we talk about new school, it needs to be significantly different. Different scale, different students being served, different programming, and you can do that in district or with a partner. And to be crystal clear, the system is designed to offer fewer and fewer options, or maybe rigidity around the options, the more unacceptable accountability counts that you receive. And so with Dobie, Burnett, and Webb, at the time that we approved the turnaround plan, they had already accumulated a 3rd, and we knew that their 4th was right around the corner, given the information we had at that time. So these were submitted to the agency on the 26th of June and then approved a couple of weeks later. And so I'd like to hand it back to Dr. Maxwell to take us through the next couple slides.
Good evening, Superintendent Segura and Board of Trustees, President Powell. I just have one slide here that I'll go into just a little bit, and then we'll go into more detail in each of these areas. But part of this work really to implement in the first semester started several months before that. A significant amount of work done around staffing of these schools, which we know staffing has such an incredible impact on students and student outcomes. Heavy focus on instructional improvement and some of the changes around what we were doing instructionally in the classrooms, but also to be able to support teachers in training and materials. coaching and development, that's coaching of instructional leaders, development of them, as well as the staff and everyone that is involved with the students on those campuses. Definitely wanted to extend some opportunities on those campuses as well for extended day and additional learning opportunities for our students, and then multiple ways for community and family engagement. And so the rest of our staff my colleagues will take us through each one of those slides in much more detail and talk about what that for this first semester has looked like, and then a look ahead at the second semester as well.
Good evening, trustees. We're going to start off with strategic staffing. As our superintendent said, we did get a rather late jump as you consider when a traditional hiring season occurs. Traditional hiring, it starts about at the end of February and tends to wrap up in June. This is really when we started to launch. We did get ahead of it before the vote a little bit. We had our very first transformative hiring event in May, but I want to point out that we did not have principals in place at that point. We all know that a principal is so incredibly important to how a staff comes together for the culture of the school, right fit, all of those things, and together with Dr. Amerson and her team, talent strategy, we did the bulk of that hiring without a principal in place. So Burnett, we did have an internal candidate go in on July 1st, one of our elementary principals, one of our fantastic elementary principals, and then we hired two just stellar folks from outside of our district, but it was in July. And we also put in place stipends to help recruit folks to come to our campus with the lens that they needed to be highly qualified, which is a correlation of performance in the classroom and student growth, that correlation piece. So these efforts, that was, first round. We were not able to achieve full staffing with just outside hiring, again, very late in the game. And on July 29th, I stood in front of principals and asked for, frankly, I asked for their rock stars. I needed folks that were willing to come and help our campuses stand up. It is not ideal, but we did have an amazing group of folks say, I will, raise their hand and move over to these campuses to help launch. There's been some, if you'll go to the next slide, please. There's been some, lots of confusion. Are we staffed? Did we staff better? Did we start too late to be able to be staffed? I don't want to put it into context. And so the best way to do that was really to talk about, changes in overall metrics. When we talk about a vacancy, it also has to be taken in context with enrollment. And so we're going to walk through that a little bit. So first of all, very proud of these numbers. And again, major kudos to internal staff who helped stand this up. But average teacher year of experience, you can see the delta. At Burnett, we have, and these are very hard numbers to move for average years of experience, but an increase of 2.7 years of experience, an increase of 3.1 in Dobie. Webb had not as much, but they had a higher seasoned staff prior. And they also had quite a few of them retained. As far as certification, which we'll discuss later, but a tremendous jump in certified teachers on these campuses. So, double digits for all three for teachers that hold certification. And this one is one that I want to keep in mind, especially as we, again, in context of if there are vacancies or not. The student-teacher ratio matters here. Every single one of these campuses dropped in student-teacher ratio, which is that is the negative that you want. So you want to see a decrease in how many students per teacher. So in 2024 at Burnett, it was 14.5 students per teacher, and it is down to 11.6. So taking all of that into context matters as we talk about appropriate staffing and whatnot per campus. These are well below state averages and absolutely in ratio, well below ratio. This is about half of our ratio, in fact. So all in all, again, a late start, but these numbers are tremendous for those metrics.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees,
President Boswell, Superintendent Segura. I would like to continue the conversation by talking about some of the implementation efforts that have taken place since the beginning of the school year. We'll first start with instructional improvements that have been made. I'm very proud to report that all of the students at these Restart campuses are being taught using high-quality instructional materials. We are ensuring that our teachers are supported through ongoing training. They've been equipped with protocols to use during their PLCs as they plan. When they look at student work samples, they can adjust their instruction, whether they're spiraling in concepts whole group or forming targeted intervention groups through their math and ELA times. It all comes through the high use of these two adopted tools, Savvis for ELA and STEM Scopes for math. Our professional development this semester is listed there. I did provide a few dates for you, just so you can have an idea of how much support we have poured into these schools. We've had 6 days of dedicated teacher capacity building, and that's just our professional development days that the district structures. That is not all. This is one of the opportunities that we had. They've had 15 days of leadership coaching. I want to be clear to say that that's not from the Office of School Improvements Executive Directors. It's from our technical partners. They do have on-site days and on-site support. They receive weekly support from the academic coaching specialists from the academics team. So there's always support for our teachers and our leaders as they are growing their capacity as instructional leaders and teachers. For decisions that need to be made about student growth and student performance is always rooted in data. So we do use Eduphoria, which is our database where our data is housed. Our CBA data, curriculum-based assessments, live there. We have map screeners that we've used. We just completed the middle of the year assessments. And then we have formative assessments like exit tickets. Next slide, please. We are monitoring student progress. This is just some examples I wanted to show of how students, are now owning their own data. So the young man there taking a picture of his map growth data. Student data trackers are being used. And the board that you see down there in the bottom picture is actually a data room. It's a PLC room, and the teachers actually move the students as they progress through the groups, and so they're color-coded. So this is our approach to instructional improvement, making sure that the student is the owner, and teachers are using that to make decisions as well. Next slide, please. I will turn it over to Dr. Maxwell.
So I think the previous complex flow chart shows a lot of different things, which is the system progress monitoring really works heavily all throughout the system. It starts with the student. It definitely involves the center, the teacher being knowledgeable and having what he or she needs at their fingertips to make decisions, but it also reflects different levels of campus child study teams, meetings that we have, different PLCs when we're talking about students. It really reflects, I love the pictures on it too, because it reflects the student engagement in their own data and setting their own goals and tracking their own progress, which is a really important part of not only understanding where kids are struggling, but really understanding where kids are growing, and they can see those things too and know what they're working towards. So this is beginning of year data. This is what the initial assessment that we took just about as soon as kids get there. So beginning of year this year, what we're looking at is STAR projected proficiency. What we look at many times when we're looking at MAP for our board reporting, we're looking at student achievement percentiles. That is not what this is. Student achievement percentiles tell us more whether or not a student is performing on grade level. These are a different measure that we get from NWA MAP that lets us know the projection of how students will perform on STAR. This is not as highly correlated at beginning of year as it is to middle of year MAP, which we just now finished, and we haven't finished analyzing all of the data yet. So typically you'll see some different movement at middle of year than you would see beginning of year. So there are a couple of things to think about when we're looking at this data as well. One, I think it's pretty clear. Overall, you can see students are starting at a lower STAR projected proficiency this year at 2025 than they were at the beginning of the year last year, 2024. One of the important things to remember is that the assessment changed this year. So it's going to be a little difficult. I think we talked about this a little bit last time. We'll continue to talk about it in board reports to compare previous year scores to current year scores. We do still think that the STAR projected proficiency will have a strong correlation to end of year STAR performance. But with the test changing, it makes it a little difficult, and that could be with any assessment. If it changes, it's harder to compare the results of one year than it is to a previous year. So that's always a caution to look at. And then, of course, the norms in MAP changed as well. And so that affects student achievement percentiles more than it does STAR projected proficiency. But this is our first year with STAR projected proficiency with a new assessment. And so we'll have to be learning as we go with this. One of the things that the test did do is it prioritized grade level content. So it's an adaptive test. It goes above the grade level. It goes below the grade level to ask questions to really understand what the student knows and does not know. What it did is it narrowed the content and the scope of the assessment. So it doesn't go as far above grade level or as far below grade level, which could still have a positive impact, in other words, and stay very correlated to how they actually perform on a grade level assessment at the end of the year. So we believe we'll still be able to use this to make projections. But again, the middle of the year data is a more valid indicator than beginning of year data is, because it is just that much more closer to the assessment. The STAR interim for the state works the same way. Their correlations don't start really getting tight until a little bit later in the year, early spring. We've found middle of year, though, is correlated in previous years. With the changes in the assessment, again, like I said, we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. But there are a couple of things. Middle of year is a better correlation. It's also a better indicator of any impact that campus-specific strategies have had on student learning. So beginning of year doesn't show us that. It shows us a lot of kind of where students are coming in and what their experience would have been like the year before. And then middle of year is going to show us more, especially with STAR projected proficiency, what students have done, if they've been able to grow during the year. And then also we'll take a look when we compare middle of year projections to previous year as well, but we'll look within year also to see the growth of those students.
Thank you. So in addition to quantitative data, we also collect qualitative data by way of instructional walks. So the Office of School Improvement executes strategic campus walkthroughs that are purposeful and intentional. This learning experience is structured to collect low inference evidence and calibrate on instructional excellence. That leads into action planning sessions with executive directors, the principals, and the IOTs. During the debriefs, leaders review findings, process and analyze trends in student work to design targeted support and ensure the observation translates into systemic change. Next slide, please. Extended day opportunities. So interventions such as MTSS, House Bill 1416, all drive academic support. They're often implemented through focused instructional models, including small group instruction, extended day programs, and targeted academic sessions like Saturday school or our late Wednesdays. We have supplemental programs that further extend these opportunities, such as the after-school activities, the Boys and Girls Club, ACE, which is the After School Centers of Education, and students are given exposure to post-secondary options through college visits. As you can see here, these are some pictures from some of the experiences that our children have had this year. Next slide, please. We are always working to strengthen community and family engagement across the 3 Restart schools. So far, we've had at least 30 community and parent meetings across the 3 campuses. The campuses have hosted academic nights. We've helped families understand student data to equip them with tools to support their learning. We've had events like back-to-school bashes. There have been other events to continuously build trust and transparency through communication. We've continued the CAC meetings, PTA meetings, the coffees, caregiver workshops, and other community partnership events, which of course we want to strengthen those school-to-home relationships. This slide is showing that our campuses, as they make contact with families, do enter them into our platform, and we do use that data. We are creating different tools to streamline across all three so we can house them in one hub. But I did want to show that when contact is made to our families and our communities, that we are expecting that the schools keep a record of that. So we're focusing on two-way communication. We want to proactively address student performance, about grades, missing assignments, different attendance issues, and these are just some, not all, of the ways that our parents have been informed about their students' progress. So when we look at attendance and enrollment data for the three campuses, there's mixed results for all three schools when you look at them in totality. There is a trend of declining enrollment, but despite the varying attendance figures, all three campuses we've had a decline, but it's a community-wide decline. Our district overall has had a decreased enrollment. Vernon has saw a loss of 143 students. Dobie lost 110. Webb lost 88. But we do know that this is a part of a larger system. When we look at district attendance data with our vertical teams in our community, it's not just these three schools, but it definitely is something that we have to address. So still keeping with our first semester and kind of closing out our efforts, they focused on the 5 key pillars that Dr. Maxwell introduced at the beginning to drive school improvement. The staffing saw success with fewer vacancies now that we're in December, and an increase in TIA designated teachers. There have been restructured assignments. Instructional improvement was anchored by the introduction of HQIM. We have now standardized the process of a data analysis protocol. Our POCs have been strengthened. We've had coaching and development. We've had check-ins with our partners. We've had, and I just want to say this for the executive directors, we counted over 382 hours of support that they provided to these campuses. We've had extended day opportunities. We've implemented Character Strong. I finally want to close out with our engagement numbers. We've had outreach. We've had contact with over 2,300 parents, 372 parent support connections through our parent support specialists. And again, we've continued to build trust and transparency with our regular principal meetings. And
yeah, thank you, Dr. Amerson. As we transition to second semester adjustments, I think it's really important we just acknowledge the sheer amount of work that our staff has been taking on, right, over the last many, many months. It's a lot. It just is. These turnaround plans, lifts like this, in the amount of time that we had to do it, creates significant strain within our schools. And as we close out the semester, I was fortunate enough to spend time with some staff and have committed to spending time with the principals and going back to the campuses before the end of the week, next week, just to listen and to hear more about, what we can do as an organization to make adjustments to support them better. I mean, that's just what we need to be doing. And so there are lots of things that came out of those conversations. We've been meeting with the team since really this morning to make adjustments. And so more of that will come, but I did want to just kind of acknowledge just the frustration, the exhaustion, I think, that occurs when this type of work happens. And, whenever we have a late start with plans like this, it only exacerbates, that type of challenge. And so wanted to know that, we're wanting to provide relief. We're wanting to make adjustments as best we can. And we're going to use the time between now, the break, and shortly after the break to make those adjustments to ensure that we have a better spring semester than fall. And so, Dr. Wright, take us through the next couple slides and, briefly, and then we'll close it out.
Sure, thank you.
Just to touch on our second semester adjustments, it's really three major areas of focus. We're going to continue to tighten around the instructional core. We're going to continue with intensified training. Something that we're going to do more of that we did not do in the first semester is backwards planning, meaning that the leaders will preview the CBA so they'll know exactly what standards need to be focused on as they deliver instruction with the HQIM. The master schedule, which I'll talk about a little bit more in depth on the next slide, is going to be refined and optimized. We are going to restructure that late Wednesday. And then the third pillar with the data meetings, we do have the data analysis protocol, but the schools will now have more of a planning guide to use alongside it. We'll do state of the school sessions where we partner with the academics team so the schools can share with us what's happening at their schools and we can respond to them as a district. And to seek support beyond the classroom, we're going to continue our efforts with family and student engagement and learning and implement more of those academic parent-teacher teams that we talked about with Data Nights to help our parents understand even more about scores. To touch on the reworking of the master schedule for the second semester, the timeline begins tomorrow. Campus staff will be notified that the master schedule will be worked as Superintendent Segura said. We've been working on this all day. They'll be notified tomorrow. On Monday, superintendent will meet with the principals to kick it off and help them understand a little bit more what we're going to be doing with that work. We're going to have teams of 7 to visit these 3 schools next week on site at each campus. And they're going to be working with the campus teams to make the changes based on adjustments that the data says that we need to make from the first semester. We will be soliciting feedback from our campus teams to see what they feel like works best and what they need. It is, again, another short runway, but definitely enough time for us to make it happen. The master scheduler team is going to be responsible for having a lead project manager. There's going to be central office staff on that team, assistant principal, a counselor, the principal. So we're going to have teams of people on site next week to make sure that when the students return after the break, that the master schedule is in a better place than it was for the first semester.
Yeah, and Dr. Emerson, just real quick, this is one thing that we heard loud and clear, I think over the course of a semester, but certainly when we met with staff in the listening session yesterday. And there were lots of thoughts and concerns, and as we began to talk about them and explore them, many of them, the root cause was just the master schedule. And certainly we are going to deploy adjustments and resources as appropriate, but we want to make sure we have clarity in how we do it when the master schedule is set. So it's really important that we take this work on. We are notifying the entire school because I want them to know that we're taking this extremely seriously. We're going to make adjustments, and because we're doing it on campus, we may call in a department chair for a couple moments and say, hey, you know, we're at this point, we want to make an adjustment. You know, what do you know about your students? You know, what do we need to know as we make this adjustment? And having proximity to staff and being on campus will really help us do that efficiently and be responsive the way I think we need to be to ensure success as we start the spring semester. And once we have this set, then we can talk about some of the other things that I heard last night in the listening session that will allow me to deploy resources, but the quantity of those resources will be kind of baselined against a master schedule that actually reflects the needs of the campus. So we are working, but I wanted everybody who participated in the meeting last night and certainly conversations I had since then to know that we are going to get this done. We're going to improve it, and that work started late last night into this morning. Go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. As I close out this particular section, I do want to go back to something Superintendent Segura said about people just being fatigued and being tired because of the amount of work that it takes. And so we are going to do a reset
and revisit culture and climate. The campus committees are going to be intentional about planning more events just for our teachers and our students to engage in. Weekly circles with our students in elementary. They do morning circles. And I was like, we're going to bring that back to middle school. It's always good to have touch points and check-ins with our children. For leadership development, we're just going to reset and revisit expectations and remind everyone about the wonderful work they've already done and to encourage them to keep moving forward because we still have a lot of school year left. And so we're going to revisit expectations at the Restart campuses. And then last but not least, for teacher support, we're going to create a best practices conference where they can share ideas across the campuses. We're going to be including school-wide spiraling and review. Now that we have good data, we can use that data to do some school-wide campus initiatives. And it will be interdisciplinary. For example, we do have a band teacher who will have students read some type of text from band, but then have them cite evidence. And so all teachers are taking ownership, and so it would just be a way to have an interdisciplinary approach, all hands on deck, everybody's sharing the ownership and sharing the responsibility of making sure that our students have the best experience possible. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Josh.
Good evening, trustees. I'm going to briefly cover our 1882 decision timeline. In keeping with the 1882 contingency that we wrote into the turnaround plans for Burnett, Dobie, and Webb, we attended some required TA trainings over the summer, and in the fall we put out a call for quality schools to ensure that, should we need it, an 1882 partnership will remain an option for us for these three schools. Ahead of that, we did hold community meetings at the schools and received community feedback during the meetings, also through surveys. And their feedback was what informed our application process and our interview process for potential partners. And currently we are wrapping up that evaluation process. As Dr. Maxwell mentioned earlier, the schools are just about done with their MOI map. I believe the majority of the students are done. We have just a few absentees that are still yet to test. And so we'll be done with that this week, and by next week we'll have accountability estimates from our internal campus and district accountability team based on the middle of the year map growth results. And we'll also receive at the same time a parallel projection from our technical partner, Steady State. And then next week we'll take the week with senior staff to dive into these estimates along with other data sets. And our plan is to have a decision ahead of the January board meeting so that if any of these schools will pursue an 1882 partnership, we can bring it before the board at the January 29th voting meeting and submit TEA's partnership benefits application by the January 30th deadline. On the next slide, I have, I'm presenting the targets for the middle of the year map growth test. When you take the STAR projected proficiency and put it all together and look at what that would mean for domain 2A and domain 3, which are traditionally, for the last 2 years, what these schools have gotten their accountability ratings from, our goals are to get a 72% in domain 2A and a 66% at least in domain 3. And that would ensure that we would land at a 70 borderline C. Some of the other data items that we will be considering alongside these accountability estimates are listed on the bottom, and includes year-over-year comparisons for map growth, curriculum-based assessment results, and other common assessment results, as well as observation data. Handing it back to the superintendent.
Yeah, and just to close this out, I just want to acknowledge our staff that has been within these schools, supporting our students, loving our students, and the tremendous ask we've had of them over the last many, many months. We had to do this work in a relatively short period of time. They showed up, we asked them to take on the work, and they've done it, there's no doubt. And so just want to share my sincere appreciation for all of their work. I want them to stay encouraged. I want them to stay, to stay engaged with us as we move through the spring semester, and know that, we're here for them. We're going to make adjustments. They are AISD staff. They will continue to be AISD staff no matter what. And we're going to do better, and we're going to refine over the break and start the spring semester off well. And so I think it's important that we continue to say that, because in last night's conversation, it's clear that they're all in. I mean, they're all in, and it's a lot. And we can help carry some of that as we move forward in a way that maybe we haven't been able to do. And so just wanted to kind of take that moment. And so with that, we'll hand it over to the board for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, all of you, for the update. I think Trustee Quintana had a question. We can start there.
It was answered in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Trustee Singh.
So can we bring up the slide that actually has the map scores, please? So this is such a difficult situation that we're in. And I do also appreciate the staff, and thanks for the excellent presentation. I think one thing that, obviously it's pretty jarring to see that our beginning of year scores are lower this year than last year, even if it's a different test and it's normed differently and all that kind of stuff. The numbers, are not encouraging. And I think that, we've got to be really realistic about the decision for the 1882 partner. I know originally when we decided to vote to go this route, we said in December the board would make a decision on whether or not to go for an 1882. So I just want to be really clear, it is December. We are not doing that vote now. And I wanted to understand, so going back to that timeline, is it likely going to be in January then?
Yeah. So when we first talked about the first window, so there's 3 priority windows, or 3 windows that TA has to accept, right, partners. At the time, the December 12th date was the date. I believe it was December 12th or 12th or 15th or something like that. But that was before we would have received middle of year. And there's not necessarily a benefit for us to go earlier in the 12th, because we would have limited information. And one of the things that we committed to our community was giving our schools the benefit of going through the fall semester. So now, as we finish up middle of year and the assessment window closes and we're getting the data early next week and into winter break, we'll be prepared in early January to provide a recommendation to the board with all the data that we've collected, and then have an independent technical partner provide also their assessment. So that would be the target date, that January board meeting.
Okay, and so will that partner be sharing, will there be presentation, will that partner be here as well presenting, or?
Yeah, we can structure it however we would like. We have kind of the flexibility. It can be within ours, but it's really important for me, and we talked about this from the beginning, that they are separate. We are going to do our assessment, they will do theirs, and then we'll make the recommendation.
Okay, and that's a partner that was selected, they were on a TEA short list of partners.
That's correct.
Okay, so this is and so they, okay, so.
So as part of the turnaround plans, Texas Education Agency often will like to see a technical partner whenever a school district has not taken on a turnaround plan such as us. Okay. And so it is a short list. It is someone that we know is okay.
So their opinion does carry some weight. I just wanted
I would say yes.
With TEA, their opinion carries weight.
I would think so.
But I think again, and I said this, and I know others have shared this concern, is if we don't do an 1882, again, and any of those schools gets an F and the map data does not look great, the whole district is likely to be taken over by TEA, starting, I guess that would be starting the next school year.
So the way that it would work, I suspect, is on the 15th of August, whenever the ratings, the accountability ratings are released. There would be a period of time for the commissioner and the agency to go through and make their initial recommendation. There's actually a period where you can appeal the ratings themselves, so that would extend into the fall semester. There would be likely a visit from the commissioner or the agency later in the fall semester, and then a recommendation of some sort would come around this time or early in the
Okay.
spring semester of 2027.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Okay, and then the other thing is, implicit with all this is, it means the entire future of the school district is on the shoulders of the students of these 3 middle schools, basically, on the STAR testing date, which is a lot of pressure. So, I think where I'm going is, we've got to be really prudent here, and I do hope that, this is not what I want. This is not the future I had hoped for us, but I really do think that, you've got to convince me that an 1882 is not the way to go. Right now, to me, that seems like a clear choice in terms of keeping our autonomy as a district, if that is the prevailing factor. For me, that is. And I really hate saying these words, but I think that's kind of the situation we're in. The other thing, could we put up the slide that has the teacher experience? Yeah, I really appreciate this, and I think this is a bright spot to see that, we do have teachers with more experience and more certified teachers at each of these campuses, and I know that was a really heavy lift. But, the great paradox of this is, we handpicked the best teachers in the school district and surrounding areas to teach in these 3 middle schools, but at the same time, we're having them teach in a very different way than they're used to teaching. With the instructional materials and all the stuff that they're required to do. And how are we grappling with that? That just seems to really, I know that TEA needed us to do certain things and use HQIM and do all the stuff. At the same time, that doesn't honor the things that our excellent teachers and all these certified teachers did to even get them placed into these 3 schools. So I would like a little bit more of a broader understanding of what's actually happening there. Do you observe that tension? And is it justified? What do we do about it?
Well, I think, I think that each teacher coming in has a different experience. So I wouldn't group them all a certain way. Some of them are coming from other schools, high-performing schools. Some of them are coming from outside the district. They're coming from lots of different areas, right? So I don't want to just group them all and say that their experience was one way or the other. What I will say is, what is challenging about what we had to go through is that the runway to get everybody aligned, everybody on the same page, to really do the work to address that wasn't able to take place. I think that's the honest truth. When you hire the principal in July and teachers are out for break and they come back and the ramp up is quick, you get this frustration and this tension. How we grapple with it, I think that's refinement. I think we have candid conversations and like last night, we heard loud and clear that there are some teachers and educators that I spent time with that are frustrated with that exact thing you just mentioned. Now, on our side, there isn't a lot of flexibility given how far these schools are, right? And so I think as we look moving forward, and this is a conversation we had with staff, being really clear with our educators that are coming into the space, kind of what this is going to look like and feel like when they come into a school that is going through a turnaround. It is different, right? There are different expectations, and it is more rigid. And that's by design, as we talked about. The further you are along in a process, the agency expects that rigidity. And so one of the things that we heard from our trustees, we had 2 trustees there, but one of the things I heard from one of the staff members was, a manual, because I think one of the things we not to kind of go full circle, but, when we were hiring, we were communicating what the expectation would be or what the experience would be like, but many of the staff were hired late, right?
Yeah.
And after that kind of initial conversation took place, and some of them hired into the school year, and so that onboarding, all the things that you would expect to happen in a more thoughtful way, we just didn't have the runway to do it. So, I mean, I don't know, Dr. Maxwell or
No,
Brandy.
that's fine, that's sufficient. I think that that's something we've really got to like explore and really address head on, especially as we've got this other slew of TAP schools coming in. You know, like that's my concern. And I'm really glad that we're having this conversation now because it will help inform, you know, what we do next. But I think like that, it's this battle that's happening nationally. Like, are our teachers professionals, or are they going to be like robots that implement a scripted curriculum? And I think like that's playing out right here. It's not anyone's fault. Like, and you know, like it's not like our teachers are not doing their job. I know that they're doing the job that we've asked them to, and we're doing what we are, you know, what TA is expecting us. But like when you look at the MAP data and you're like, wow, even despite us doing all these things, our scores are going down.
I think one of the things that was at the beginning of the year would have been reflective of last year's teachers on, right? So I think.
Well, you can say that. I mean, but like look at the attrition of students. I mean, there's a lot going on, and you have to. I believe that if we had kept things as they were, our beginning of year scores probably would have been a lot higher. Like, I just got to say that, and I don't. That may or may not be valuable to this conversation, but it makes me wonder, like, yeah, like, you know, and this is not the fault of our teachers, this is not the fault of the district, this is just the situation that we're in right now, and unfortunately a lot of districts are in. So how do we make the best of this? And I think please just center teachers in this conversation. They've got to be at the table constantly. They're doing the work, and I think that's the only way you do it. You know, so okay. Other thing I want to just mention is more like just a logistical kind of thing. I would love to see, I appreciate seeing all the work that you guys are doing, like all of the teacher, the ESCT data and all of that. I think what's missing for me though is like, what are the KPIs? Like, what are our targets for all of these things? Because I don't really get a sense from that. Like, is that better? Like, are we on track with something, you know, or are we off track? Like, you know, it's like the raw data, but that doesn't really tell me enough to know, like, if we're on track for anything. So, like, is the parent outreach better than it was last year? Is it worse? Is it the same? And so, like, I would really appreciate, I'm sure you do have KPIs for all this. So, like, if, like, what are our targets for like the number of parents who are actually understanding where their child is on MAP? I want to see that. Like, I know you've done a bunch of PTA meetings and this and that, but I still don't know, like, is it 10% of parents who looked at their kids' MAP scores, or is it 100% of parents who looked at it and really understand how their kids are doing? I think, you know, that if I just knew that one thing, that would replace pretty much a lot of the other, like, that to me is so important, that it's worth more than like 10 pages of other stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm really interested in just that. How are our kids, like, what are the meaningful things that you've heard that we know the research says is most impactful on increasing student achievement? What is our target for that? And are we meeting those targets? Thank you.
And then Chair, this conversation is budgeted for 45 minutes. The staff presentation was 35 minutes.
Thank you. Do we want to continue asking questions? I know that's our budgeted time, but I know this is also immensely
I have some
important.
questions, but I'm going to submit them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Davis.
Just a quick comment that I would like, when we're presenting this information in January, if we can really focus on some of the growth metrics. You know, you had that last slide on how we would clearly, I guess, make a call on what decision we want to make. I think besides the TEA element, it would be good to be able to assess just our efforts overall, because we're also doing these other turnaround plans on other campuses, and it would be a good point of reference to see how effective this system is operating, regardless of what choice we make.
Thank you. Trustee Kaufman, did I see your hand? Yes.
Yeah, just real quickly, I would like, I would request 100% clarity on what our options are regarding the 1882 and potential partners when we meet, before the meeting in January, just to be very, very, very clear about who and what our options are regarding the procurement process. And secondly, I'd like to request that we move the vote on 1882 potentially to January 15th at the information session, so we don't have a day before it's due deadline before making that decision.
If that's the board's will, we can accommodate that.
Thank you, Trustee Kaufman. I think those are both excellent ideas. And does that mean we could talk about potential partners at our meeting next week?
And I want to clarify that too. If waiting till January restricts our choices, right? Because I think there was previous information about what our options were if we were to vote in December versus if we were to wait till January. So I just want to, if in any way waiting till January to make this vote restricts our options, I would like clarity on that before we post next week's meeting, which would be tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think the December versus January timeline restricts our options. I have to check in with the procurement rules on what we can share about potential partners ahead of the January 15th meeting, but I'll make sure to inform the board.
Okay.
What we could probably do is, just send an update regarding process and who's proposed and the steps that have been taken.
Yes.
I think that's.
I can provide clarity around the process.
Yeah, I think it would just be helpful to have information before we vote on who you might be recommending and why. I think that would be extremely valuable for our community and the board, if that's a possibility.
Or is it
not whether you're necessarily recommending it, but if you do, it would be, if that's something that's possible.
Well, maybe what we do is I'll work with you to talk about maybe there's a separate one conversation is because each one is going to have a separate, right? Each school will have its own conversation, and I want to keep them separate. And then the first conversation is where are we, and then the second question is the partnership. And so let me think about how to structure that. But yeah,
I think a decision this important is valuable, and thank you, Trustee Kaufman, for asking to move that vote back. And then I think I would also like clarity on just truly considering all of our options, being really transparent with our community, whether voting to close one of those campuses before the STAR is taken is also an option we have under law. Not saying it's an option we would take, but I want to be really transparent about what is and is not allowed by law.
Yeah. We already.
I know it would be a modification of the TAP, but we haven't talked about that publicly, and I'd like to understand for myself and for our community and our board.
Yep. We already did that, but I can.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I realize we're right literally in the middle of something, and yet I want to step back and basically ask the question. I'm already perceiving powerful lessons learned about TAPs and TAP implementation and feasibility, a whole bunch of things, communication. And so we're going to do 8 times more upcoming. I guess I'd ask the president and the superintendent, what is the best place for me to submit both my questions and observations related to what's coming around the corner so that we leverage this moment to get sharper?
Yeah, I would welcome, we can have that, I would welcome that conversation. I think that there's, we can structure however the board would like to have it. If you want to send questions and then we can build out a conversation, because there are things that.
Trustee tracker, one-on-one meeting.
No, I think we do it broadly. I think you can send the questions, but there are lots of things that we have learned, or things that we continue to learn. Even last night, the adjustments this morning. And I also, this is atypical. Like this timeline that was given to us is very, very, very atypical. And so I think there are lots of lessons learned, and I think it's also important to talk about how what we're taking on is different than what we just took on. So yeah, I'd welcome that conversation. We can do it soon. We can do it the first week of January, whenever we'd like.
And I would say, Trustee Foster, to me, those seem like very appropriate questions to attach to the agenda for our public when this comes back around and we talk about that middle of the year data. So I think these are all in January.
January info.
Yeah, so I think if you submit them, you can get answers sooner, and then maybe we can attach those in January, because those seem like super valuable lessons learned. And I do want to share appreciation for your responsiveness to what you heard from our educators last night, and to Education Austin for bringing them together, for Trustee Whitley Chu for that, and to our educators who are sharing their on-the-ground knowledge and expertise to amplify the work we're doing and really strengthen the work we're doing. So thank you just for honoring their expertise and knowledge to make all of this better. And I think that is something else that we can really lean into going forward. I know that's how you approached it, is what can we learn to strengthen this and the other work we're doing. And we have not done this before in this way. And it's so important that we get it right for our students, our staff, our community, and our district. So thank you for that. Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, I think I'll just be, yes, like I said last night at Burnett, I wish that when I was at Pierce, the last 2 years it was open, I wish the superintendent came to my school. I wish that the trustees came to my school and asked, what's your honest feedback? What can we do? The teachers who stayed at Dobie, Webb, and Burnett, the teachers who stepped up to come to Dobie, Webb, and Burnett those are my people. They are excellent, excellent teachers. This curriculum it's the curriculum we are using in our schools. It doesn't phase them. They're doing a good job implementing the curriculum and are able to be themselves and be the excellent people they are. The support that they have in place, isn't there. When you're not fully staffed, a school isn't fully functional. And I believe you, I believe that the staff here did everything that they could in the time period to try to get it fully staffed, and it didn't happen. I'd prefer in the future, superintendent, instead of a 35-minute presentation, which I'm sure takes hours and hours, just boots at the ground on those campuses. I believe you that you are trying. I believe you that these are all the things you want to do. But I think I'd rather even just have someone's we were doing so much work, here's just the map data. That's what I'd really like to see, and I think that's what the folks at campuses are desperate for. At Dobie, they've posted a volunteer opportunity for hallway mentors. They will train people. They want volunteers. They need everyone to help them, and I know our community wants to help. This staff is amazing. When we came to Burnett, there were kids outside playing volleyball. It was getting dark, and they still want to be there. They love their school so much. So I just want to thank y'all, and just really, really thank the staff that stayed super, super late and were so honest, so helpful, and had really, really, really helpful advice for the future. Thank you.
And Trustee, Whitley Chu, even at the end, 8:30 or 9 or whenever we, they were jazzed up about coming back to school. They just love kids.
They love those kids, yeah.
And there were, I know this may frustrate other principals, but there are lots of staff that are I know we came, but we're staying, which is always nice to hear.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, thank you. Thank you all for the work and the update. Appreciate it. So this ends our section on information reports from the administration. We will come back to do a scorecard item after our agenda preview. So we're going to preview the agenda items considered for a vote at our regular board meeting on December 18th. And ISD staff is here available to answer any questions for tonight's preview. And we'll start with item 6, which is the agenda preview for upcoming academics and curriculum items. Trustees, any questions on these items? The one thing I'd like to highlight, and would just love a quick update from the superintendent, letting our community know what this is 6.1, the partnership with Travis County.
Yeah, so votes matter in the tax rate election, that the county was successful in pursuing, created an opportunity for us to create a full-day pre-K experience for our families at nine different schools, which are listed, all Title I schools. That would not be possible without their support. So we're really, really excited, and I think it's just delivering on a commitment that we all thought could be possible when the tax rate election passed, that the county pursued. But this is a real example of those dollars being put in place to support our community and provide that experience. So we're really excited about it.
Thank you. I want to thank all the voters who supported that and all the people who are coming together to make that possible. And I know that'll be a benefit for our students with kindergarten readiness, certainly, and for our families who need to work, and for our campuses, and I hope for our enrollment that people are in and they are excited to be part of Austin ISD. So thank you. And then just clarity on 6.2 and 6.3, that is for this year cleaning up, not for next year.
That's correct, President Boswell. One of the things that we're wanting to do is just to make sure that all of our agreements are current, and as we kind of look at renewing, we want to make sure that everybody is current before we do anything moving forward. So that's what that is cleaning up.
Thank you. Okay, next section is item 7, business and finance. Any questions? A comment from the superintendent.
I wanted to make a brief comment on 7.5, interlocal agreement with City of Austin, NAISD for the provision of PEG capital funding. This is a kind of nuanced funding source that I don't know that many people know about. It's been in place for quite some time, but it's an agreement that we have with the City of Austin that allows us to pay for a lot of what's happening in this room and broadcasting to our community kind of the important work that's happening in governance for Austin ISD. I will say that after the pandemic, there was a little bit of a hiccup and the dollars didn't flow the way that they had in the past. And so I do want to kind of express my appreciation to City Manager, T.C. Broadnax, and the Mayor, because we were able to kind of have a conversation about 9 months ago to kind of get this unstuck, and lo and behold, it's $100,000. So collaboration, partnerships matter. Very much appreciate them kind of progressing and being responsive to the requests that we made, or that I made. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Austin. Next up is agenda item 8, board administration. And just a quick comment that these are adjustments to targets based on the changes to the scorecard we made a few meetings ago. So thank you for that. Any questions, comments?
Okay, so attachment, oh wait, hold on, maybe, okay, so does attachment 1 have the correct new targets? Okay, so I just wanted to raise awareness. So we're in a great position where we have already beat some of our targets for the 25-26 school year. Like in 2024-25, we already beat some targets for the 25-26 school year. So the question is, does it make sense to keep the future targets as low as they are? I know one of the things that we heard from some of the outreach in the community was that the targets are too low. And I just wanted to provide that context and just be like, what do we do about it? Do we just keep the targets, in a sense, artificially low because that's what we decided, a few months ago? Or do we increase them? What do we do? Or do we just put in a little paragraph explaining, hey, we know that this seems odd, but this is the reason that we're keeping it this way, just some help there.
Yeah, so this is actually tied to a methodology adjustment where we were overcounting a student population that was increasing our target. So it was really in an effort to clean up the calculation that was used to create the target for a constraint progress measure. I think it was 1.2 or 1.1? 1.2. But to your point regarding targets in general, my strong preference is to keep them untouched for 2 years, ideally. And the reason being is that there may be a rebound, right? So whenever you implement a change in a system, sometimes the change it occurs quickly, and then there's an offset before it stabilizes, and then you begin on your trajectory. In some cases, you put a lot of resources and energy, and it doesn't quite move, and then it's a hockey stick after year 3. So I do expect us to continue to beat our targets, but I would be hesitant to change them until we get to a milestone of around at least 2 years. That'd be my strong preference. I wasn't expecting having the conversation today, but I think maybe as we end out the summer and go into the summer, we have that conversation in June. I do want to make an adjustment, but I want to do it like after we have, a little bit longer, maybe 2 full years of the scorecard, and
That's helpful. And if we do that, could we at least put a paragraph, like something on this document itself? Because it seems really strange. Like anybody who actually reads this data table would be like, okay, I see that, you had 29% of your Black kiddos meeting 3rd grade reading, but your goal is below that for next year. It just doesn't look right. So like if we could have a little explainer paragraph, just some comment.
That's always going to be the case. I mean, if we perform, if I do what I'm supposed to do, that's going to be the case every year almost. I mean, you're going to continue to have, we're going to outperform. And then every target that we set is going to be further and further away. So I guess the question becomes, how do you hold me accountable? Is it the 5-year target, or is the 5-year target?
That's why I'm bringing it up. I just want to make sure that we actually have this conversation, specifically because the African American community in almost every session I had said the targets are too low. And so I think that's just something for us to consider.
Yeah, no, we want to be aggressive for sure. I want to be aggressive, and I think we've demonstrated that we will be aggressive. But the reality is we are starting from point A and we're getting to point B. And, I think if we get 2 years, and again, we've already have well over a year, I'm happy to revisit and rebaseline. I just want to be really clear that we're now changing the targets, and we'll continue to change the targets on a 5-year horizon, and that's what you're going to hold me accountable to. Just fine, but it's a larger conversation I think that we need to have, because it can be difficult, because if we meet a target that's 3 years out and then we increase the target and then we come back the next month and present a data where we didn't meet the target, then it's back to administration, you didn't meet the target. So I just there's this balance that I think we have to think through. But I will be aggressive. I think you'll know that about me. But I'd like a little bit more time before we rebaseline everything.
Thank you. Trustee Hunter, do you have a question or comment? No. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Next up is Section 9, Facilities. Any questions or comments on this? All right.
I just want to make a comment on the agenda. We organize the agenda's items to be within groups, and so 9.2, you're probably like, Mattia, yeah, correct. The agenda's item is accurate. Everything within it's accurate. It's in 9 when it should be in a different grouping. So we'll correct, but it's nothing material, just organizationally. Just
and you'll move it to the right place.
Correct.
For the next meeting. Thank you.
Correct.
I would also suggest on the 8.1 that we talk about district scorecard and targets, but we're also approving a new monitoring calendar, and that we name that as well in the title.
Yeah, I think the approval is not required. The agenda, approving it will amend the previous item, the previous calendar, so it wouldn't be a separate item.
Just for the community's awareness that we're voting on something that's not named in the caption. That seems strange.
Yeah, so you have to vote on it. We put it there.
Yeah, we included
you've put it there. We're not
FYI.
voting on that. Got it. That's just an attachment for information.
Correct, to show the change.
Okay, appreciate that.
For transparency.
All right, perfect. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, Group 10, Talent Strategy. And can you please, maybe this is a Mr. Walker question, 10.2, anything important to share with us on that?
I mean, Brandy can, this is to be responsive to the comment that Trustee Hunter had, or sorry, the question. Thank you for calling that out.
Good evening, trustees. 10.2, referring to the application for delay in certification. This is simply to give us some runway. We absolutely are pushing and want all of our educators to be certified. We have been. A district our size needs a little bit more runway than the end of this year to be able to do that. We want to acknowledge that so many of our teachers are in certification programs right now and need time to finish. And so it is simply an application that will give us a little more time to get them through. I want to be very clear, though, if we have educators right now that have not started, that is a different conversation. And so we will not allow that to perpetuate. Some of the staffing guidelines that we have for this spring as we do some of these transitions, these large-scale transitions, there must be evidence that you have started and are making progress. So this is simply so that we have time to make sure that everybody can finish, not so that we can continue to have uncertified educators in classrooms.
Thank you. Trustee Hunter, do you have additional questions?
Also, because HB2 says that by 2030, we've got that riding up against us. So I know that we at Austin ISD, and I did want to check, are we still doing Grow Your Own?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I want to, everybody doesn't know about what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Like that we have an EPP, right? People don't know that.
We do. Well, so I want to be very clear. Our EPP was put on ice with the removal of federal funding. So ours is kind of it stalled out with a removal of federal funding. However, Grow Your Own takes many forms. And so we partner with universities, we partner with ACC, we partner with, we have a vendor that we partner with also to where, and I spoke about this, I believe, in the last meeting, we are hiring them on, rather than doing a contract teacher, which is not, been there, done that, didn't like it, we are hiring them on as TAs, because at the end of the day, the worst thing that could happen is that they did not finish their certification, but we got to retain them as a TA, which are so incredibly important. And so once you're here, you're family, right? I know, Olive Garden style, but we want.
Sorry.
No? Okay. Anyway, we want them to stay. We want them to stay, and we want them for it not to be a one and done deal. So they are here as TAs. Actually, they're here as teacher residents. And so, which is a slightly lower pay rate than our teachers until they are fully certified. And once they are fully certified, we move them right into a teaching position. And most of them are special education and bilingual.
Thank you. I also have a comment. And I used to have this preacher back in Abilene that says you never pull out your pocket watch till somebody asks what time it is. And I think these comments are asking what time it is. There's not one test for certification.
Oh, no.
You don't just go to school and take one test, right? They have to take their content test.
Correct.
Followed up by their PPR, that pedagogy test. And then if they want to do ESL, they have to take that test. And if you want to be a bilingual teacher, it just got super complicated because now you have the bilingual supplemental plus the, what is it, BLPT? I always get the initials
And you
wrong.
have to have the TOEFL in order to correct all of that.
All of that, especially if you're coming from another country, then it complicates it more.
Correct.
And then you're paying for that while you're going to work all day and you're going to class at night or on the weekends. So getting certified is not something that happens like that. I mean, also, the bench is not deep. We're fighting for people like, don't become a nurse, become a teacher, right? It's hard. So yes, we do have uncertified teachers. But I made this explanation the other day. There's a difference between a veteran teacher and a master teacher. Yes. There have been people that teach for 20 years and they suck at it. There's just a fact. And there are people who have been teaching for 3 years and they are doing the thing. I'll leave the other word out. They are doing the thing, right? They are doing it every day. And so we have a mixed bag and we're trying to get people certified. And it is just, it's where we are, right? And it's not Austin ISD. It is not Texas. It's not even, believe it or not, the United States of America, because I follow school districts in the UK and in Australia. They have the exact same issues. Now, they just took away, social media, so they might be a little bit easier on there. But it is hard to get people into a school to teach kids. And any parents that want to substitute, we are happy to have you.
Absolutely. Please come and substitute.
Or a community member. You don't just be a parent. You can be anybody.
But I also think that certification is such a it's such a black box for people to try to understand how to, because of all the steps that you just mentioned. And so bringing them on as a resident and holding hands as, okay, now do this, now do this, now do this, now do this. And now we've got, I am going to either spend money on turnover or I'm going to spend money on investment. I'd much rather spend it on investment and help pay for that certification and help pay for all of the supports. So while I would love to still have our Teach Austin, we need to stand that back up. If we can, secure some funding for it, right now the pipelines that we have are going to pay off because these folks want to stay. And that's how we're going to go about it.
And all the people who have raised their hand in this climate to say, you know what, I still want to do this for a career. So thank you.
And we got to meet them the other night, and they are absolutely precious people. They're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Trustee Hunter, and thank you to everyone who's doing that program. Next section up is policy. Trustees, any questions on the policy item? All right, next is 12, other. Oh,
Kaufman.
Trustee Kaufman, oh, thank you. Yes. We're ready when you are.
It's not working.
Okay, great. So I wanted to, there was a piece of EHBE that I'm concerned about, and I brought it up at MEAC, but I wanted to bring it up again today. And that is, given the comments that we've heard from the community around the answers about whether our dual language programs have space for families who are being displaced from schools that are closing. I'm concerned about those being campus level decisions about whether their program is open to other students. And so I'm proposing that I'm requested to the district administration to change that proposal to specify that the decision around spaces available for non-emergent bilingual students to transfer in be a principal and superintendent or designee decision. So that is a collaborative decision between the campus and the district rather than it just being a principal decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kaufman.
Actually, I appreciate that comment. We did receive, as Dr. Kaufman was saying, feedback from MEAC when we presented this, and so this just further clarifies what was proposed. So we can make that amendment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know a lot of the families I'm hearing from would appreciate that. I know we're all hearing from people, so thank you for that. And it seems to me that that aligns well with our general transfer policy, moving back to a more centralized model as well.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Thank you, Yvette.
Sorry, Yvette. I have one more. I have another. I have a question about the language of instruction. So it's so I see that it might be higher than 50%. Some places will be all 50-50 for every grade level, or is that incorrect?
No, that's a great question. Okay. So the language of instruction early on for pre-K students starts at 90% in the partner language and 10% in English. And then it continues to roll. So at kindergarten, it's about 80% in the partner language, about 20% in English. So it continues that pattern, and by the time it gets to third grade, it's about 50% of the instructional time in English and about 50% of the instructional time in the partner language.
And so my question around that, after our audit, our dual language audit, and a question that Dr. Kaufman brought up about English and Spanish-speaking partnerships, like staffing that way, does that make it more difficult to staff these programs with the shortages that we have, if we have that tied into policy, that we have to do it this way?
So since the last meeting when we kind of talked about that, we have started to look at which campuses are using a partner, partner teacher configuration. not just which campuses, but also how they're being used. So we did kind of poll some principals as well to see how they're being used, if it's being used English content, Spanish content, if it's being used STEM humanities. So we got some good input on that too. The other thing that we looked at is there are some campuses that have one teacher per grade level, like one dual language classroom per grade level. And so in a campus that looks like that, they wouldn't employ, a partner teacher model until we're looking at, additional numbers of students. So we'd be looking at almost 2 classrooms worth of students before we would start looking at that partner teacher configuration. So I really appreciate the question that you asked and Dr. Kaufman asked the last time we were here. And so we did look more into that.
Is there a reason it needs to be in policy written this way, like this addition? And so I'm talking about the line when I'm looking at elementary dual language programming on page 2. And then the first full sentence that's in blue. Like, is there a reason we need it? Like, is that something that MEAC asked for?
That the campuses will follow the district's, is that?
In pre-kindergarten, instruction shall begin with percentages higher than 50% in the partner language and shall gradually decrease each year until reaching 50% by grade 3 and above.
That was written in to make sure that we are following the language allocation plan that we have, right? And here we really are looking at the starting point being higher in the partner language, right, at pre-K in the early ages. And then by second grade, it looks almost like 60% in the partner language and about 40% in English. And again, by 50%, I know I'm repeating myself, it goes into English and Spanish 50%. So it is a dual language model that like other districts also might use, whether it's a 90-10 or an 80-20. So it's consistent with what we've seen in other places and in research. We're just putting it here, I guess.
But the line doesn't preclude you from doing that, right? I guess Trustee Willie Chu, it is the question, does this line have to exist in this way? And is that restrictive, for us in some way moving forward?
I see. So maybe something more general rather than this specific.
Yeah, and I would say and Dr. Kaufman, you please interject because I do not have expertise in this matter.
I just want to pose that the question is whether the actual language allocation policy should be included in local policy or if that should be a regulation. So clearly the law already says that we have to have 50% or more of the instruction in the target language, but we have options available to us ranging from 50-50 to 90-10. And so the question for us, I think, is whether the language allocation plan should be dictated by local policy determined by the school board, or whether that should be left to the administration for a regulation.
And that makes sense. If we want it, because the next thing we're going to work on with MEAC is the reg, right, EHBE, and updating that. So we can definitely move that on over to reg.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the question. I mean, that's the question. Should we or not?
I think, I do think that we should have just, the campuses will follow the district's language allocation plan at all grade levels in local, but we can certainly move something that is more specific, such as the sentence that you were talking about. We can move that into reg, because that can also change if we have to shift, and it's not as restrictive if it's not in local policy. So I agree. Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable with the language allocation plan being in regulation as long as we continue to monitor outcomes for students.
Do we need to go back to the policy? I mean, can we maybe just amend it and send it to the board with the time we have left, and then?
The board can make the decision without going back to the policy committee.
Okay.
Yes, especially because the policy committee is with us. So, yeah, thank you. I have one further question. Were there any recommendations that MEAC made that are not going to be reflected in this?
Yes, so I don't have my notes with me, but there were just, again, being more specific, and so those are things that we are already scheduling MEAC work group in January to be able to pull some of those items and incorporate them in the conversations for regulation. So we've already asked MEAC when they can meet. It would be like a special meeting, work session, if you will, so that we can work on that before we take it to MEAC for the next formal MEAC meeting in February.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much. Next section is 12, Other. Any questions on these items? Trustee Hunter.
I know that last time we had this come before us, we kind of lost our step where we actually hear about what's going on and get background. I just want to ensure that this time, when we go through this process, that we're actually getting back to that process so we can make a really good decision based on all the information. So I would appreciate that we continue that process.
Would it be helpful to put a small exec session to build it into our agenda right before that item? Is that something we could do on our agenda every time we have terminations to consider? I think that would be a great practice. Thank you to our council and to Josh. Thank you for that.
I'm just trying to think. You want to say something, Ken?
Yeah, sure. I think at some point when that was discussed previously with the board, it was an understanding that you all would convene an executive session before a final decision was made on any of the staff recommendations for discipline or termination. So I know that, I guess at some point, it wasn't reflected necessarily on your agenda, but it was just a practice that the board understood. So when we got to this agenda item, before, again, any decisions were made, the board retired to executive session before coming back to make any decision.
Thank you. And having it off the consent agenda, I think, it should never be on the consent agenda. That was another part of the agreement that we had. And so I think it should definitely be items for separate vote. Yeah, thank you. All right, this ends our agenda preview. Our next item is part of our commitment to discuss student achievement. We have a presentation about Goal 3, our college, career, and military readiness. The last item on our agenda before exec session. Before we hear our presentation, we need to confirm that our monitoring report is complete. The following questions help us determine if the monitoring report is effective or not. Does the monitoring report clearly show which specific goal and trim goal is being monitored? Does it show data for the 3 previous reporting periods, preferably on a line graph? Does it clearly show the current reporting period? Does the report clearly show the target reporting periods, including annual targets and our deadline target? And does the report clearly show the superintendent's current view via a defined set of indicators of system performance relative to the goal? Does the report clearly show supporting documentation that evidences the superintendent's understanding of system performance? And if the district is not at target or the superintendent's understanding indicates implementation is not on track, does the report clearly describe systemic root causes, strategic responses, including a rationale, and any needed next steps? That list came from Ashley Paz, who has been our Lone Star governance coach. Does anyone have evidence the elements of an effective monitoring report are not present? All right, thank you. So we will now turn the floor over to Superintendent Segura for the presentation.
Thank you, President Boswell. Before we begin tonight's presentation regarding the board monitoring report, I wanted to mention that we also had the constraint progress measure 1.2 exclusionary discipline actions scheduled to be presented this evening, and this ties back to the monitoring report being approved. Again, it was a calculation methodology adjustment, and we felt, though, it was appropriate to come back with the scorecard adjustment first and then come back in January with the updated presentation. And so we pushed that to the 15th so that we can make those adjustments, and we'll have that ready to go at that point. And so at this time, the team and I will present the scorecard Goal 3, College, Career, and Military Readiness. I have joining me Dr. Marianne Maxwell, Assistant Superintendent of Academics, Dr. Angel Wilson, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary School Leadership, and Ashley Binnicker, Executive Director of Secondary Outcomes. And so tonight, Goal 3, College, Career, and Military Readiness, and this is one of the goals that is required by the state of Texas to be included, states that the percent of annual graduates who demonstrate CCMR by meeting TSI criteria and at least one of the following items: earning an associate's degree concurrent with graduation, enrolling at a post-secondary institution following graduation, earning an industry-based certification, or earning a level 1 or level 2 certificate, will increase from 43.7% for the class of 2022 to 54.6% in the class of 2027. The goal progress measure 3.1 through 3.3, this is the summative report for Goal 3, and you'll see that in the appendix. As we made adjustments in the monitoring report, it's important to note that the superintendent makes a determination regarding the evaluation of progress. The determination at this point is that Goal 3 is indeed on track. Official 2023 data confirms the graduating class. Again, it's always in arrears because of the data that we're using for CCMR. Class significantly exceeds both the 2023 and 2024 annual targets. This success was equitable, with all student groups also meeting these same targets. This achievement was driven by the district's sustained focus on TSI readiness and increasing post-secondary enrollment, which we'll talk about at length during the presentation. This internal focus on college and career access, in combination with the culture of CCMR monitoring, led to a significant increase in students meeting the Goal 3 criteria. Where we'll continue to scale these successful strategies and the partnerships that we have while refining our support for industry-based certifications and certification completion. So as this is a summative report on lagging 2023 data, we will also preview, and we do have the ability to preview 2024 data for Goal 3, so you'll see that kind of notated in our graphs. Goal progress measures within Goal 3 will focus on the 2025 year success as they are reported through the end of the year, or through the year. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ashley to take us, to Dr. Marianne Maxwell to take us through the next section of the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Segura. Good evening again, President Boswell and Board of Trustees. So we're pleased to bring this report to you this evening. This is our first summative report on CCMR outcomes and the work that's been done in secondary outcomes. Last year, there were several goal progress measures that were reported that are indicators of this summative data. We can see the class of 2023 demonstrated significant progress, exceeding both the 2023 and the 2024 targets. And we also see that even though that is lagging data for the 2023 cohort, we can see preliminary data from 2024 does show that that following class is still following that same trajectory, which begins to give us positive information that we are seeing a positive impact on the system and CCMR outcomes. And so the line graph below, when talking about overall how the targets are set here for this board goal, what we're looking for are students that are, as Superintendent Segura described, meeting a couple of indicators here. One, that they are meeting TSI criteria, and that often is passing the Texas Success Initiative assessment, math and language arts, or scoring high enough on the SAT, for example. There's other exams that also give them qualifying scores. And that shows us that that first indicator for this goal is that our students are college ready and they can enroll in credit-bearing college courses. And so that is definitely an indicator that students have a strong option while they're with us in school, and then we're combining that with another indicator of post-secondary success. And so really this goal describes that students that are meeting this target have stronger options, may have multiple options as they matriculate through our high schools and continue to possibly earn credit in high schools or have other options to experience post-secondary success. And so the line graph that shows the past results on the left-hand side that is a little bit lighter blue, that shows the history since 2020 of how our students have been meeting this mark, and then 2023, which is our first measurement for this year. Again, lagging indicator, that data was finalized in May of 2025. And the goal was set to be 45.7%, which would have been a 2% increase from the previous cohort of 2022 of 43.7%. Where we actually landed was 49.5%. So we actually increased by almost 6% and beat that target for 2023. And as you can see in that yellow diamond next to it for preliminary data, we're showing that the target for 2024 is 47.8%, but preliminary data shows us that we are actually at 52.9%. So again, early indicators that things in the system and changes in the system and the hard work of all of the teams and the people out at campuses have really started to make a difference for students. And I'll hand it over to Executive Director Ashley Beneker to talk about a little bit more data analysis and some root causes.
All right, so as we shift into the data analysis for Goal 3, I just want to ground us in the purpose of the work. So our team, we often talk about what we want to be true for our students when they leave us, and it just kind of brings us back to that. But Goal 3 is a really great representation, a measurable representation of that work. And so, like Dr. Maxwell said, when a student is going to meet Goal 3, that means that not only are they showing college readiness through meeting TSI criteria, whether it's TSIA2, SAT, or ACT, but they've also got another contributing factor. So it's that and one factor. So they are completing their associate's degree while they're in high school, concurrent with their graduation. They're earning a level 1 or 2 certificate, earning an industry-based certification, or directly enrolling in a post-secondary institution, whether it be 2-year or 4-year. So as we think about that data tonight, I'm going to reflect on what we see here in the graph. Oh, you've got it up, perfect. So the big thing to remember is, of course, like Dr. Maxwell said, we're looking at 2023 as the actual class that we're presenting tonight, but we did choose to go ahead and throw that preliminary data of 2024 in there to really show you the big picture of how we're seeing growth and success across our high schools and across our student groups. So the big thing is that overall Goal 3 progress, we see that we're meeting our goal not only for 23, but also for 24. Not just the whole percentage, but every student group was able to do that, as well as 24 is meeting the 2025 annual targets as well. If you look through, you can see that the district grew from 49.5% in 23 all the way up to 52.9%. And I want you to look back, so go over to the left side, the first column over there, 2020, you see 53%. And in 24, we hit 52.9. So as we think about recovering from those COVID years and getting back up to our goals, our students are getting there. A really important factor to remember in that is that we changed from the TSIA to the TSIA2 in that time too. So not only are our students passing at higher rates, they're also passing the harder version of the TSI. And so that's just a really important thing I want to just praise our students and our campuses for. As we look at this data, there are 3 major contributing factors that I want to break down. So first of all, more of our students are passing the TSI. That means that we've increased the base of our students who can even meet Goal 3 criteria, which is great. So if we're looking at just TSI, our TSI-ready graduates increased by 11 percentage points from 22 to 24, from 46.4 to 57.4 in that's just passing TSI. The next contributing factor to Goal 3, the number of students, the largest contributing factor, I should say, is our students who passed the TSI and enrolled in a higher institution. So of those students, in 2023, 47% of the graduates who met Goal 3 did it by directly enrolling in post-secondary, and in 2024, over half, it was 51% of those graduates did that by directly enrolling in post-secondary. That growth alone is great in terms of sustaining our measure and the success that we've seen. But you can see that there's a higher percentage of growth there. And where we find that is in the industry-based certifications. In 2022, 6.8% of our graduates walked across the stage with an IBC. In 2024, it was 23.9%. So you can see that's over a 300% increase of those students graduating with that. So when you combine the bigger base of students with TSI, the bigger base of students going to college, the bigger base of students earning that IBC, that's where we really see that growth and sustain the measures that we're seeing. So from that, our strategies are working across the district. I know we always want to see very rapid growth, that hockey stick, we love it, but we are seeing sustainable growth here, and I'm really excited about that. In knowing that and examining our root causes, we see what works and we keep going with it and we build on that, but we also see some areas where we continue to see challenges. The first area that we really have seen so much growth again is IBCs. We talked about this in September when we aligned our course sequencing along with the TEA programs of study, setting ourselves up to get that completer status. It also enabled our students to continue their learning and shift over to being successful in those IBC exams. Also, we've really shifted to a culture of we're going to take IBCs in this program of study. We're going to take IBCs on this campus. So there's an expectation of excellence that we're seeing in our CTE programs. I'd also just like to mention that I know we talked about it in September, but the universal course sheets have also empowered our students to make those decisions and see the programs that best suit them. The second root cause that we see here is that we, along with the state and the nation, are seeing foundational gaps in academics whenever students enter high school, and so we're addressing that. I know we've talked about it, but we're putting those TSIA skills into specific math and English classes. We're really focused on Algebra 2 and in English 3. We know that those are the most advantageous times for students to take that test when they've got the most skill to do that. Also, on each campus and working with the campuses, we've instituted and implemented a TSI preparedness matrix, and what that does is it helps the campus staff realize when the best time it is for a student to take that. So we know that we want them to take it in Algebra 2 and English 3, preferably after the SAT, because the SAT is where most of our students see success in TSI. But also, if a student has been unsuccessful before, it helps line up what that intervention looks like and when they follow up with that student. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wilson, who's going to walk us through our outlier campuses.
Thank you, Ms. Spinnaker. Good evening, Board of Trustees, President Boswell, Superintendent Segura. So tonight, we want to walk you through some of our campus outliers that have been highlighted in the report. These campuses have shown exceptional success and strategic implementation of programs that directly support and impact Goal 3. One of the things we're the most proudest of is the diverse array of campuses across the spectrum when you think about the bands in relation to our school resource index. So for tonight's presentation and report, we have one campus from Band 1, which is Eastside Early College High School, two Band 2 campuses, Navarro Early College High School and Crockett Early College High School, and a Band 4 campus, Austin High School. Most campuses, including the 4 campuses that are highlighted, as well as several of our other high school campuses, experienced significant CCMR growth, with several showing double-digit percentage point gains. So we'll first start at Navarro Early College High School. Teachers and leaders at Navarro Early College High School have fostered a meaningful college and career-ready culture, inclusive of strategic master scheduling, to ensure that all students have viable pathways to complete a CTE program and earn an IBC. All 9th graders at Navarro are enrolled in a college transitions course. This course helps to prepare them to take the TSI exam and to be successful. And Navarro Early College High School also has targeted funding and dedicated to staffing and other programs and resources, such as after-school tutoring centers and extra duty pay for teachers, providing targeted IBC support. At Eastside Early College High School, we are moving from building a culture of TSI participation to one of intentional preparation and success. The campus has strategically shifted from broad testing, which was evidenced in 2023, to targeted TSI A2 testing. Additionally, teachers and leaders adopted a more effective model of early pathway identification for students and ensuring student readiness by proactively identifying 9th and 10th grade students interested in high-value outcomes, such as attaining associate's degrees and IBCs, and then also providing them with focused long-term support. Through the use of targeted TSI A2 testing, this resulted in higher student passing rates at Eastside Early College High School. This campus has also done an effective job of leveraging partners such as Gear Up and Breakthrough. It is important to note that Eastside Early College High School is the only high school in our district that also has a campus-wide breakthrough model. So while all high school students at every high school in our district benefits from breakthrough coaching and support and services that are provided, Eastside was a pilot campus that was selected to have a full-out campus-wide model, and we have seen this to be very effective in relation to Goal 3 and in relation to other impacts and student outcomes for the students at this campus. API tutors are also utilized at Eastside Early College High School for small group instruction and helping to center conversations and planning on post-secondary success for students. At Crockett Early College High School, teachers and leaders have fostered a phenomenal college-going culture, and they have also earned national recognition as an avid national demo school in the spring of 2025. This is our only high school in the district with this distinction. At Crockett Early College High School, they have really evidenced strong program alignment, a commitment to the AVID culture, and successful collaboration with strategic partners and college advisors to prepare students to meet the rigor of TSI and other indicators. And this also helps to validate the campus-wide focus on rigor and college readiness. Lastly, at Austin High School, students have demonstrated significant growth through dual focus strategies in high-yield areas. Through strategic course alignment and a focused effort on students being supported with college readiness skills and TSI and IBC attainment, students are able to meet the expectation. There is also a slightly added bonus at Austin High School and a student incentive for off-period being granted once CCMR readiness is demonstrated, and the students love that incentive. Lastly, the campus is proactively identifying 10th grade students who are interested in advanced coursework during their junior year and preparing them to show success with TSI. We have identified as a district that a primary driver for success with these schools, as well as every other school that has shown success in this area with Goal 3, is our strategic focus on TSI readiness, which combined with increased post-secondary enrollment, largely influenced by Austin Community College's free tuition, has yielded strong results. We are continuing the work of monitoring, supporting, and scaling resources and best practices across campuses, inclusive of the strategy shared tonight, to ensure that all students maintain access to optimal pathways and choices to support their journey in college, career, and beyond. And now I'll kick it over to Ms. Binnicker, who will take us through next steps.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wilson. As we've stated, our first priority is really just to continue scaling the strategies that we've seen be successful across the district. And so the first of that is TSI. We want to continue embedding those skills into and monitoring that in those classes, especially, again, English 3 and Algebra 2. Working with those teachers, doing professional learning where it's needed, making sure that they've got the lessons that they need. We've also taken time to explore the TSI preparation that we have available to us. So for example, over the last year, we've learned that there's TSI prep in IXL. So we're utilizing that tool as well because it's already available to us. And so there are just different ways that we're exploring and using and utilizing the tools that we already have. Additionally, our focus is converting CTE program enrollment to IBCs attained. We want to make sure that the students that are in those classes are actually getting the IBCs. Our CCMR dashboard has a new function, which should be live for campuses when we come back in January, that shows, and it follows students and shows their course sequences and then if they've earned that IBC or not. So a counselor or whoever has access to the dashboard on the campus can go through and click through and say, hey, who are my CTE completers that don't have an IBC yet? Click on that, it's gonna give them the list, so I know where I wanna focus my efforts with those kids to say, hey, no, you're gonna earn your IBC this year. And so they can do any preparation that they need to for that as well. We will also continue doing our CCMR campus advisory meetings, which we do quarterly. As we shift through, we've learned that the dashboard provides such helpful information to us, but not everybody on campus has access to it. So we have implemented CCMR data sheets for the campus where I take that information and download it from the dashboard, which only a few people have access to, but we give it to the campus so that more people have access to it on the campus, because you cannot move the needle if people do not have the information. And so just in the same way, I don't need just the math and English teachers to know about the TSI. I need the football coaches to know about the TSI. I need the theater directors to know about the TSI. those teachers that have the relationships with the students that can encourage them to pursue that is so important. And so we're spreading that information as well. And then, of course, we're going to continue to actively engage with our college access partners to continue the work of enrolling students into college after high school. And we've seen great success there. You guys just approved Breakthrough last month, I think, and so we've just got great things happening with our college access partners, and so we'll continue that engagement as well. But truly, our next steps are just building on the success that we've seen and continuing to improve as we go.
Thank you. As we close out, I think it's just, you mentioned a couple of things that I think are worth calling out. The platform that you're referencing, that was an investment that we made in 2023. The board approved it. We were really trying to make sure that our campuses and our staff had real-time data. Prior to that, they were looking at information that was in arrears, and it was difficult to make adjustments to really support our students. And the board approved that in the spring of 2023. Technology, worked with Salesforce to ultimately implement in the summer of 23, and then we launched in the fall. And that was, one big kind of milestone that certainly required board support. Universal choice sheet you mentioned, but then just even recently, ensuring that, CT, like all of our partners have access, or all of our departments have access to actually determine what is on the universal choice sheet, not just the campuses that are deploying it. And I think, lastly, ensuring that we have controls whenever a student decides to drop a school that may impact their pathway. Another thing that we've implemented, that it's a small thing but done at scale, actually helps create understanding so that no student is making an uninformed decision, which is always something we want to be doing. So little things, but they have big impacts as they compound over time. All right, any questions?
Thank you so much to all of you. Exciting to see so much of this. Trustees, who has a question? Trustee Hunter.
Thank you. I have a question about the CTE courses and getting the kids to do the IBC. I know that we've had a lot of trouble getting them to be completers, right? Because if they get it and then they change their mind, they don't want to be in it, then it kind of throws everything off. We haven't talked about that in a while. How's that going? If we're planning on getting kids to do this, to persist is the word. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally in line with GPM 3.3. I'm sorry, my voice is a little tired today. I think that putting those course sequences in line first and foremost and meeting the state requirement was huge. But not only have we gone through and trained our teachers in what those course sequences look like, we've also trained the counselors, and it's been ongoing. And so now it's just a regular expectation that when you have this class, you go to the next class. In a former CTE life of mine, I had my teachers go through and say, hey, work with your kids, make sure they know what the next course in line is so that they know to enroll in that course. And so also I'll note that the CCMAR dashboard with that new functionality, it's called CC Pathways. What the campus can do also is I can go through and see, hey, who's a concentrator who it hasn't quite gotten to completer status yet, and maybe they've even gotten their IBC. So I know that group of kids, I'm gonna make sure that they enroll in that next CTE class. We know that kids change their minds, and I joke with parents all the time, if they find out now that they don't want to be a nurse, that's okay. I'd rather them do it now than when they're paying for tuition. But we do want to encourage them to do that because it's just like math, right? You build on skills. It's an important skill that you learn. You continue to learn on skills and build on those things. And just as a human, I think that that's so impactful in your life to be able to do that.
Perfect. And then you may not be able to answer this question, but I just have a question. Do our students, when they receive a level 1, does HBA kick in for them because they're enrolled with us and not with the college?
Can you say that again?
So under HB8, the level 1, the remuneration back to the institution of higher education, when our students get level 1, does whatever, I guess, higher ed that we're working with, do they get like bonuses for our kids?
Right. So there's a term for that, and I can't remember it right now. But yes, that's really great for them too. It's not an industry certification, but that does help them out too. So it's really great, especially for our P-TECH and early college students. When they get those level 1s, especially through the college, that is it scores well with the college.
Good. I'm just saying, so we can
Yes.
continue to build
It is
those partnerships
mutually
and keep that
beneficial.
going for our students. Excellent. So nobody backing out, because everybody's getting their belt tight. People are trying to cut back on stuff. And then finally, I'm looking at the schools that are taking advantage of the ACC document, where the schools, I don't know what slide that is, my bad. I should probably have said that. Ashley's gonna be upset with me. It is, I have no idea. It's attachment 4. And as I look on here and I see like the numbers of like who's growing and then who's decreasing, and of course from year to year that's gonna change. But I'm just when I look at my early college high schools, I really want those numbers to be bigger. That's why they exist. And that concerns me when I think about that we have, I believe, is it 7 early college high schools? Yeah, 7 early college high schools. And there's lots of investments that are attached with early college high schools. And if we're not maximizing it, I have to ask myself a question: do we need 7 early college high schools? So I don't know if we're looking at these numbers and we're saying, this is really awesome, because I see schools that aren't early college high schools really taking advantage. And I'm wondering if that's about communication with parents, right? If you have remember the secret language, if you know the secret language of success, then you can do that. But if you don't know, and I'm still, oh my goodness, running into people that don't know it's free and their kids are graduating. I was getting my windshield wipers replaced the other day by an LBJ student and I was talking to him about ACC, because I got to take my opportunity, and telling him that, when you graduate this year, you can go to ACC. You're in the cohort till 27. You can go free, right? And so he was like, really? I was like, for real? And then I told him about a scholarship opportunity. But I still he's been in our schools this whole time. He's at an early college high school. How does he not know that even if you don't do it right now, because you working a job, it's like 9 o'clock at night and you put windshield wipers on my car, right? You can still take advantage of this when you're out of high school. So just getting that message to our kids to take advantage of that. There's like 8 weeks you can do at ACC and still get like a job. There's things that are 16 weeks. There's things that are 2-3 years or whatever. But the communication is not getting through for our kids to take advantage of that. So how do we, that might even, if we got that message out, that might even increase our CCMR, right? They might want to take advantage of it earlier. So I feel like the communication, like we're still missing that piece. Even though I know a lot of kids know about it.
I do want to point out, I'm trying to find the exact graph. This summer, we were at a meeting and somebody asked me to speak last minute about how we've seen such success and growth in our direct-to-college enrollment. And if I can find it.
And you can share it with me later if you can, because
I have it.
I'm a nerd. I love this.
While she's looking for it, I will say that we've noticed incredible success at high schools that have dedicated staffing and personnel. That is their only focus and their only role is to monitor the systems, the enrollment, because we look at early college high school and we look at graduation rate, that doesn't necessarily constitute to what you are alluding to, Trustee Hunter, which is the fact that let's look at how many students are actually taking advantage of, completing the early college program and attaining, the necessary associate's degree or college credit hours due to staffing cuts. And there was at one point in time assistant principals who received stipend, this is the designated AP for early college program, and it really helped to support. There was a point in time when this team, secondary outcomes team, was a lot larger to support the staff. So right now what we see is it's a challenge, and it's a delicate balance with the same assistant principal that is also over a lot of other tasks and the day-to-day obligations of the school that also is dedicating that attention and support to this. The models that we've seen the most effective are, if you look at, Aikens, where you have the campus, communities, and programs that are aligned and that move as a cohort. I think we've seen the most success in the quarterly data meetings that Ms. Binnicker mentioned earlier, because we bring everybody to the table. She mentioned a point about when everybody in the school realizes their impact and they're connected, then the entire school moves. So we walked into Aikens Early College High School, I did at the beginning of the year for August Pre-Service Teacher Institute, and I was so excited to see the coaches sitting in the library while the assistant principal was going over CCMR, the goals, the numbers, the IBC goals for the year, and to see everyone taking notes and everyone realizing and understanding their impact and what their level of influence would do in order to move the data, in order to effectively support students. So the more we are increasing conversations and involving others, not just the CCMR admin, not just this one designated person, ensuring the counselors in the meeting, our special education, department chairs in the meeting, we have our coaches on board, our registrar, we see that the more we increase and the more we move the numbers and foster like a college readiness, a true college readiness culture, then we're able to move that data despite the obvious challenges, which is strategic staffing and funding.
Okay, well, I thank you very much, Ms. Benniger. You can share that with us. I'm well over my time. I don't want to get in trouble today, but I'm happy to hang around and see that, and you could share it.
I will quickly
have
say,
how much?
very, very quickly.
Oh, I have 30 minutes. I have a little bit more time.
I really want to share this.
Then
with
go
you.
ahead and share it. They're letting me go.
So we did see an
You
increase
have,
in.
you have 2 minutes, Ms. Hunter.
Thank you, Dr. Kaufman.
So what we're seeing is an increase of college enrollment from 58% in 22 to 61% in 23 to 64% in 24. But the big increase there was not through four-year actually went down a little bit, and two-year increased greatly from 15% to 22%. So they asked me,
got time for that. Yeah,
why,
people broke. Yeah.
what was that growth? And so we realized very quickly that's when ACC instituted free tuition. So I would say, I do think that students are realizing the impact that has, and so we've seen some really positive things from that, and so we're continuing to preach that message on campuses, but I'm really proud to say that our students are taking ACC up on that opportunity.
Excellent, thank you.
And that's exactly what I wanted to reinforce. I think it's important to talk about the relationship that Austin ISD has with ACC. Chancellor Larry Hart and I, he was one of the first people that I spent a significant amount of time with when he came on board, and when I was kind of new to the role and he was new to the role. He's been an incredible partner. We spend lots of time kind of brainstorming, thinking about just ideas and how to reduce barriers. And what's been really great is to see him and the team really put that input into practice and really identify and create opportunities for us. We were at a breakfast that he holds for area superintendents just a week ago, I'm not even sure when that was. And he comes and the team shared with us, this is what we heard, this is what we're doing, and we're seeing that have a real impact on our work. And so I just think it's really important that these partnerships matter. We talked about the city of Austin earlier, but ACC is a critical partner, and the work that he's doing is incredible. I told him, how can we support you? Because one of the questions I asked is, I certainly recognize that the way the structure of the free tuition model was implemented it was identified as a pilot. I'm like, well, this pilot better not go away. We got to be thinking about, how we can support ACC whenever they're board and they continue to have these discussions, because it is working. It is absolutely working. So we're doing our part, right? TSI, we're preparing our students, we're monitoring, but then the opportunity is also greater on that end too, which is obviously going to yield to these increases that we're seeing. So I expect them to continue to go in that direction, but I just want to make that point because it has been a true partnership, and it's great when you like one another as well, So just want to make that point.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question?
So I was curious with the IBC programs in particular, and the kind of the variance on the campuses, and the outliers that you described with the focus on it, and how much we're seeing the results of the focus on those programs, and then I don't know, is there a variance in the desire or popularity of those programs, where we're offering them? How are we adjusting to that cross effort between offering it where it's wanted and also supporting the students that are wanting it?
That is a great question. And I mean, the nature of CTE is truly that we reevaluate that constantly. We have advisory councils. The state reevaluates constantly. They like to change things often because the industries do change so rapidly. I mean, you think about careers that are popular now are not going to be popular in 20 years. And so we do take that into account. We also want to know what students want to do. Because everything is most things are a 4-year sequence, it does take time to make those changes. We also have to consider the facilities that we have available to us. So as we continue to make changes when available, we do rely on our advisory board to do that with us. just looking at industry trends, also knowing what IBCs are important at the time. So TEA says these are available. The industry professionals that we have that are partners with us, they say, hey, this one is really the one that we're looking with when we hire people. And so there are so many options out there that students have so many opportunities in Austin ISD. But just know that as we continue to grow, or if we do, for example, build a new building at Travis just down the street, those are things that we're looking at, is what is the industry looking for right now, and where does our student interest lie?
And maybe just along those lines, so then, looking at this, I would assume with TSI initiatives, it's more broadly accessible, right? Like I would expect more students across the entire district accessing that. So that's kind of effort that's spread more easily. Whereas, what we're talking about with the industry-based certifications are, seem specifically targeted at the campuses that are offering those. So I'm just curious the difference between the lifts as far as how much effort we're putting towards this goal between, those are very functionally different elements to this goal. And so, one of them you're talking about like a 4-year runway to get somebody through, through a certification that maybe it changes down the road. Whereas I would expect the TSI to be more universally accessible, and then with the kind of ACC funding. So how are we determining kind of the balance between those two different efforts?
That's a great question. I think we approach them both very differently. IBCs is truly making sure that our students are completing that course sequence where we can and taking the IBC, while TSI is truly a measure of everything that kid has learned up till the day they take that test. And so whether it's the TSIA2, SAT, ACT, we're focusing efforts in the classroom to make sure that they've got the specific skills required to take those exams, and then also timely skills. So 2 weeks before an SAT, a district-wide SAT, are we focusing on, hey, we need to make sure that we're reviewing things that we know that they're going to see in the SAT. And so truly it is a measure of everything that they've learned. And so they are very different by nature in trying to make sure that our students achieve those. But and I would also say they fall under different departments as well. So academics is working really hard on TSI readiness, while we've got another team over here in CTE working towards the IBCs.
Yeah, to add to that, a couple of months ago, we met at a high school campus, and our academics team joined us in collaboration with secondary school leaders to present to principals, and principals were extremely appreciative of the discussion and the professional learning experience. We had principals in the exit survey make a notation that, wow, this is the first time where we've had conversations and have connected TSI and to academic readiness in a way to where it's not as if we are over testing or that we're focusing on test preparation, but we're actually focusing on academic readiness of students. And that's like the foundational elements. When you think about our robust system and plan with MTSS, when you think about our focus on strong Tier 1 core instruction, student interventions, how do we respond to the data in ways that actually impact students and outcomes in a positive way, all of that is interconnected. And sometimes when we think of it as school administrators and teachers, we may think of it in isolation or work in silos. And the more we see the interconnectedness, then the better we're able to support students and adequately prepare them for TSI, because they can't get prepared in a boot camp session. They can't get prepared in a 2 to 3 week prep session. Also, what Ms. Benneker mentioned earlier on in the presentation was looking at course alignment, and we worked with our academics team closely to do that. So we noticed that, after students have completed Algebra 2 and English 3, they are more prepared to take the TSI test. We have worked to mitigate barriers, test fatigue, and then also just students not having the efficacy to apply themselves effectively because they may be down because I've taken this test, 2 or 3 times. It must be me that I'm not passing, but it's not. We were not able to appropriately identify when would be the most optimal time for the student to take this test to be successful. So aligning the courses, ensuring preparedness, ensuring that everyone has a shared understanding and awareness of what it takes, and then also the teams creating the TSI preparedness matrix to be able to guide campus administrators, principals, and assistant principals with that. I think that's really helped to do the heavy lifting. And like Ms. Binnicker said, looking at the resources we already have available. We have IXL available. Let's dig deep into this and see how we can use this to respond to it. What we've also noticed is that when students were not successful, the answer is, okay, we'll try again with the next round of testing. Instead of let's stop, let's pause, let's look at the gaps, and then let's prepare a personalized plan that helps to support this student, whether it's assigning them to different IXL pathways, whether it's an intervention model, whether it's tapping into our strategic partners like Breakthrough, API, and our other invested partnerships to ensure that we not only look at the data and analyze it, but we respond to the student misunderstandings in a way that moves the work forward.
Yeah, and Dr. Wilson, so one way that, because this is like a really important point, like I think it's a fundamental shift in how we approach TSI, right? So one way that I interpreted it when we were having these conversations and really get into the weeds of it all was that we are administering TSI fewer times, but we have a higher success rate, right? Like in the most salient way, like that is the way to say it, which means that you're not using the TSI to determine where your student is. You're right, like that's like you're being thoughtful in our approach, and I think that's just a really important thing. It's a completely different way that we do it now than we did 3 years ago.
I like the point there because I think that it is a very broad stroke when you're talking about TSI readiness, and it is much more than just what we're doing at high school. It's everything that we're doing that leads into high school. The placement of the test, though, is very strategic because they receive most of the content by the time they enrolled in Algebra 2 and in English 3. So where a past strategy may have been, okay, let's just start testing them and see if they're ready and see if they're ready. We'll just test them again and we're going to use a lot of credits to do it and all of that. This is more, well, let's wait and make sure that our content and our instruction is very strong up until then. They have a much better likelihood of passing the assessment at that point. So you're reducing the assessments that students are taking and the fatigue that they get, especially if they have not passed the assessment the first time. And may not feel successful. You've reduced that, and then by the time you take it, you know they've had the content in the learning, and then you're really able, I know the work has been done with the content directors as well, to be more strategic in the interventions and designing an intervention plan that really works for them and makes them more successful.
I also just want to mention, because we keep saying Algebra 2 and English 3, if a student expresses interest in early college, P-TECH, or dual credit, we do not make them wait until they finish those courses. And so we also have summer bridge programs, which is really effective for our 8th graders. So students in 8th grade cannot take the TSI, but the second they graduate 8th grade, they can. And so we've got those students, they've got the opportunity to take the summer bridge program, as well as our students already in high school. So if they want to get ahead, do the TSI prep in the summer and take it so that they can take those courses in the following year, they can do that.
I appreciate all of that clarification. And I think the last thought that kind of comes up to me tying these all together is kind of the family engagement and student engagement piece really early on, because a lot of what we're talking about is persisting on a track that, is going to take through high school. And I know coming in freshman year, particularly, so much new and for a student to make a decision. But, I do hear a lot of families asking about, IBC programs, and, there's a lot of interest in certification as an alternate pathway, but then understanding, the full path commitment to persist through that. And I think similarly, as you're talking about the TSI, just the ease of becoming discouraged or not understanding the total picture of kind of what the students, how the district's helping the student through that process, that there is a larger picture. Because that piece in high school, what I see a lot of times with families is, now you're in this very different structure where it becomes credit-based, the progression through the 4 years and looking at it as a complete package and not just the 1 year after the next year. They're so used to the grade levels. And so I'm just, again, curious on how that family engagement piece works kind of up front to keep them hooked in. I saw the pieces for the student engagement piece and what we're doing kind of structurally to make sure that it's easier for them to persist. But I guess if you could speak a little bit more on how the family is getting brought into understanding that process. It's a little vague. I'm trying to tie it together.
No, you're good. I think a lot of that does come down to course selections because a lot of times the student is already thinking, hey, what classes am I going to take when I get to high school? So what we want to do is provide them every opportunity possible to really see what those opportunities are. We have done some pilot work with taking the 8th graders over to the high school so that they can physically lay eyes on, these are the programs that are available to me at my high school next year. I think that that's so important. We've done some of that work. I know East Side last year and Northeast had great success in that. And then also starting that conversation with course selections with parents, what is available to my student? And so ideally we would be able to have those conversations on every high school campus with parents involved in that. So I think it naturally comes up through the course selection process because they know they've got to fill those 8 classes, but that's really where we see that. And then I think too, my team is working really hard right now on making sure that we're telling the good stories. We know that the good things are happening. My team specifically, we've set meetings and said, no, we've got to start telling the good stories and getting the good word out there because so many great things happen. Our students are amazing and we need to show the community that.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, also, that's a great point. I forgot. So we've started an initiative called Parent U, which is truly an initiative to teach parents and to help parents understand the opportunities for students after high school. So it's college readiness strategies for parents and families. We're doing that on a monthly basis, the first Wednesday of the month. We did not do December, but we'll pick back up in January. We've covered topics such as financial aid, how to apply to college. January is going to be our entrance exams. So we're going to talk about and break down SAT, ACT, and TSI so that parents understand what's required where and how students can prepare for those as well. And we're also utilizing our college access partners to help us do those sessions.
And is that for all the high school parents?
Yes,
or certain?
Absolutely. Okay. Anybody. We've seen great success. I think our first one, we were a little surprised at the number of parents that were on just because it was our first time ever. And we had over 300 people on that call, which was outstanding.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions?
No, I would just ask that when you publicize that we be notified. We can share that on our socials too, because that's how people, they're not necessarily always going to ISD. They're following their favorite trustee or whatever. They do have favorites, but I just think that they can get information out like that, right?
Yeah, please do
so
that. Yes.
Happy to do that, but congratulations on having that many parents. I mean, we have many more parents, but the fact that 300 people are taking time to say, help me understand this is great.
So I have a few questions. First, just thank you. It's really exciting to see. It's obviously such a patchwork of work that's all coming together to feed this kind of this report and really making a big difference for our students. So it's so exciting to see such broad success, kind of that so many things are contributing to. So I just want to start by saying thank you. And I also want to thank you for sharing the 2024 preview data. That's exciting to see. Can you help our community understand kind of the lag in this, that we're talking about 2023 data in 2020 after our 2025 seniors have graduated, and kind of why that is, and then how that impacts your work on this
that's
in this
a great
area.
Question. Part of the reason for that lag is just that when so much goes into it, right? So a student can still pass the TSI in the summer. When we're looking at stuff like direct to college enrollment, well, we've got to wait until they enroll in college. And then that information goes to the National Clearinghouse, and then it comes to us and it goes to the state, and it just takes time for them to get all of that information together. Would we like it to be faster? Of course we would, because it enables us to build on our success faster and learn from our mistakes. However, it is a lag, and so we are almost in 2026 talking about 2023, and hopefully, I think in January maybe, the 2024 results will be shared. And so again, we'll then see the preliminary 2025 later in 2026, but it's just the nature of the beast if we've got to wait till all the information comes out.
Thank you. And I have a question. I think, Ms. Binnicker, I heard you say that SAT is where most students earn their TSI. kind of check that box. Can you tell me a little bit about the TSI test, the SAT, the ACT, and how you balance kind of who gets access to what and how you're considering all of that?
What we've noticed is that the most of our students who are TSI ready in English are most successful in SAT. Now, what that could mean is that they've taken the SAT and passed it, and now they don't have to take the TSI. But it also, the biggest factor there is that the TSI-A2 includes an essay, whereas the SAT, in terms of meeting TSI standards, does not. And so we know that the TSI with the essay is a harder component for some of our students to pass. And so that's what we believe to be the biggest factor there.
Thank you. And I really appreciate flagging the ACC data. Thank you for that. And I just have a question of how you're working that knowledge in for students and families into our counseling, how that's becoming part of what we do and what that looks like and how we can support that.
That's a really great question. So there are a few ways that we do that. Of course, our early college programs, PTAC, dual credit, I'm trying to expand on those as much as possible. I know some of our campuses are working hard to get those students in that first level course, such as EDUC, to make sure that they get kicked off in their college credit bearing courses. That said, we do have opportunities outside of those, such as career academies. CTE has several of those across the campus, and that's going to be articulated credit through CTE. And so ACC is what puts those on. I could not list all of them for you right now, but we do see an expansion from ACC in their offerings of career academies as well, which is really exciting, so that students can then move on through the ACC system and continue on. They may get this articulated credit now, but as soon as they enroll there, they get their level 1 cert. They might get it in high school. Every program is a little different, but truly that relationship, like Superintendent Segura said, that relationship that we have with ACC has been so impactful for our students to see the way that the success that they could have in matriculating through the full system.
Thank you, and for free.
And it's free
at the beginning,
yes.
Which is awesome. Yeah, thank you. And then I have one other question. The superintendent and I, and probably some other people in the room, were at a chamber event focused on education. The Round Rock superintendent spoke, and one of the things he talked about is how they have worked with ACC to make sure that working toward an associate's degree, that AP tests count, that other things our students might be doing that you can kind of put together to earn that associate's degree. And I wonder if we are exploring that or considering that to help expand access and opportunity to those, that you can build it out of different kinds of building blocks.
That's a great point. I was there that day, actually. He did speak about that, and we have not personally had conversations with the ACC about that, but that is something I would be happy to explore because it's important. Also, conversations about students earning their Core 42 courses, making sure that they have those classes that are going to count for them when they get into their four-year degree that truly matter the most. And so I would be happy to explore that with them.
Thank you. Yeah, that was exciting to hear, and that was brand new to me. So I think anything that makes things easier for our kids is exciting. So good. Well, thank you so much for this. It's really pretty exciting to see really good progress that makes such a profound difference for our students. Anyone else have anything?
Yes. So when I'm looking at the table, looking at the 2024 graduates who met the Career College Military Readiness Outcomes bonus by campus and demographic group, I'm noticing some major outliers and some major gaps between campuses. So looking at our comprehensive high schools, or our non-magnets, Anderson, McAllen, Austin, and Bowie are not only like greatly exceeding the percentage of students at other campuses who are qualifying for this bonus, they are also greatly exceeding with their economically disadvantaged students are graduating college ready at much higher percentages. So I have questions about, why that is, why such great successes there, and how can that be replicated for all of our campuses?
Okay, I just want to clarify the
And
question.
if you're seeing something different, let me.
No, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question. So we're talking about our students who are economically disadvantaged at which campuses did you say?
So I'd say
again?
one, for all students, so I'm looking
Okay.
at the all students category, and then I looked at because I was saying, okay, well, I know, so Anderson, McAllen, Austin, Bowie.
Okay.
And I think what gets said a lot is like, well, those students have more students who are not, a larger percentage of students are not economically disadvantaged. But they have large numbers of students who are economically disadvantaged, and those students are, that subgroup of students is outperforming the same subgroup at all other campuses, all their comprehensive campuses as well. So my question is like, is why, and what can we do?
It's what I asked you before about that language. I'm gonna answer the question because I've taught in high schools, both affluent and non-affluent. What it is like, hey man, where you going? I'm going to take the TSI. What's that? That's the test you go to college. So now I have that information. But if I'm at a school where not a lot of people have that information, then I'm not gonna have it. It is the language of what are you doing? It's watching. I didn't learn how to eat with forks. We didn't do that in my house. A fork is a fork is a fork. Doesn't matter how long it is. I went to college. I'm like, what are we doing? We're eating from the outside in. So now I know how to eat from the outside in. But it's because I was with people who already had that knowledge. And that's what it is. It is not, I honestly believe that, yes, if you're at a school where everybody's doing it, if you're at a school to sing, you're gonna try to sing it if you can't sing. This is the same kind of thing. And that's where that messaging has to get out to everybody. Because we do have a group. Again, if I'm taking an AP class, I may have never wanted to take an AP class because maybe my parents don't even know what that is. But my teacher says, hey, you're smart or whatever, you do well. I'm supposed to say you're smart, but you do well, take the class. That is what's happening. That's why I'm saying with that language, that secret language of success, not everyone has it. But this is why I believe parents, especially African-American parents, that's like, I don't have the knowledge, but I seek out the resources. I'm gonna put my kid at a school where people are doing well so they can do well. That is what's happening there. And I think that's what's happening in our high schools. Our more resourced, I'll say high schools, is that if you're in that's why people wanna go to more resource schools, right? But the thing about it is if you, who are resourced, go to a school where there are less resources, guess what that becomes? A resource school. So yeah, that's my answer to her question that she asked you.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Hunter. I'd also like to add, if you look at the data for students entering 9th grade at every high school that are already TSI ready, you will see a clear reflection that mirrors what you just pointed out, Trustee Whitley-Chu. So at the high schools that you pointed out, yes, more students are already entering in their 9th grade year that are already TSI ready. You will see more students obtaining the CCMR point or credit at earlier points and earlier stages than you may see at another school. So that's why I was happy to point out our outlier schools weren't solely reflected on a Band 4 campus. Our outlier schools, we had so many, variations and highlights to point out from campuses that were Band 1, Band 2, Band 3 that are principals and leaders are adopting this college career culture that Trustee Hunter is speaking to. The more that we foster this, make this inclusive, and get the entire school connected and talking about this, and this becomes the language, the culture, the mindset, the expectation, then we see those rates increasing. But I do want to acknowledge that there are significant challenges that we face, and it goes back to what we're talking about with the strong Tier 1 instruction, the academic readiness, the basic foundational skills, and math and reading, and ensuring that we support as a vertical, which goes back to all the way back to early learning, early literacy. We support as a vertical that continuum and that forward progression because it really does have an impact. If we wait until the student shows up at our doorstep in 9th grade, we're already behind the curve.
Thank you.
I think one thing, just to close it all out, so I think Trustee Hunter is spot on. And the one thing I want to reinforce that with is when you couple that with with what Dr. Wilson said, like one of the things that's also is just look at the feeder patterns, right? So the alignment between the middle school and the high school, the schools that you named, the alignment is clearer. There are fewer middle schools, so that increases the alignment. And then there are lots of areas where there's fragmented feeder patterns. So again, there's lots of things that contribute to this, but it is a large system, but I would be remiss if I didn't just kind of point that out. You don't get that alignment if there's 4 or 5, middle schools going to, in small percentages to these other high schools. Just something to think about as we move forward.
Thank you. Trustee Quintana, have your questions been asked and answered?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just a quick comment on that. But I just wanted to tie that back into the campus culture element that you're highlighting, and, not to have it too differentiated, but, between the people that I hear asking about IBC programs and looking for that pathway and saying, oh, this is what my kid needs, versus clearly other people now seeing the ACC path and saying, okay, that's where I want to go. And so, one last parrot for the parent engagement part and really getting those people bought in as early as possible, because I think that is a key point to getting that language out so that they're hearing it all 4 years, and that it's, more within the community, the understanding of, valuing that program and supporting that program, and just as much as we can kind of empower those people to have that language.
Thank you. All right.
There's one more thing I saw there too. So also at those schools, so at McAllen, Austin, and Bowie, so I'm looking at the students receiving special education services who are qualifying for the CCMR outcomes bonus are extremely high. And at, let's see, how many campuses? There are 4 campuses where, so I'll point out that the highest is at McCallum and Austin High School, it's more than 1 in 3 of those students. At 4 other schools, it's fewer than 1%. And so, that's, I think, something to really look at. Mm-hmm. And Superintendent Segura, I know, like when we first started this job together, and I'm learning on the job, I was like, wait, we can get money for the district by preparing kids for college? Because, I always want to talk about how to get money, not how to cut expenses. I'm always excited. I'm like, that's the biggest win-win that we can do. So I'm so excited that Matthias and the staff hit the ground running, and that first year even increased how many students are, going out into the world, ready. It's what we do. It's the most important thing we do. So I would love to see our outcomes bonus, like how that has increased, just to show the community. Yeah. I mean, that's the best thing you can get paid to do, is get paid to do the right thing. So I'm just very, very excited about how much our staff has increased these numbers, even when we're talking about having to do it on tighter and tighter budgets with fewer and fewer people, not just in your department, but at the campus level. Mm-hmm. Is just huge for kids. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be like a data point we can carry in future presentations, just to kind of just as in the back. I think it is useful. It is an important data point that we need to share.
Show off what we're doing.
Yeah. And something we can bring in when we talk about our budget, because I know we're about to start that process too. So it's exciting. Good. Thank you all. So thank you, everyone, for the conversation. Now we vote on whether we will accept this monitoring report. And as a point of clarity, we vote to accept this report as a formal acknowledgement that we had a satisfactory conversation with the superintendent and have a deeper understanding about how the current reality for students lines up with our vision. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to accept this monitoring report.
I move to accept the monitoring report.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, having a motion by Trustee Quintana, a second by Trustee Hunter to accept the monitoring report. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. Thank you, everyone, for taking part in our shared commitment to our students and student outcomes. Thank you for the work. So we will now recess the open meeting at 9:01 p.m.
President Boswell,
Yes.
did you capture my vote as well?
Oh, and all those on the dais plus Trustee Kaufman. Thank you. I did not. Thank you. So we will now recess the open meeting at 9:01 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, 551.0821, and 551.071. When we finish with the executive session, we'll briefly return to the open session to formally adjourn the meeting. The adjournment will be recorded and included in all replays of tonight's meeting. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening. We will now reconvene the open meeting at 12:49 a.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
The meeting is adjourned at 12:49 a.m. Thank you.